Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Fire broke out in Ofafa Jericho High School in Nairobi and in Sagaleme High School in Busia last night. According to a tweet by St. John's Ambulance, the fire of Ofafa Jericho High School has been contained. Several students sustained burns while others developed breathing difficulties after inhaling smoke from the fire. The students were rushed to Metropolitan Hospital, whereas others were moved to Avenue and Meridian Hospital. Meanwhile, a huge fire has razed down one dormitory in Sagalame High School, Funyula, Busia County. Reports say students using the dormitory escaped unhurt as no one was inside the dormitory at the time of the incident. The fire has since been contained. Energy CS Charles Katera and EPRA officials are today expected to appear before the Senate Energy Committee to explain the reasons for the hiked fuel prices. Senators, among them Nandi's Samson Cheragay, filed a petition before the Senate asking the committee to question the two and other stakeholders in the energy sector, including the leadership of EPRA, before submitting a full statement to Parliament. He first asked the committee to explain why the government had suspended strategies to protect Kenyans against high fuel prices.
And I think Kenyans, we are being too complacent because anytime it is increased, Kenyans do nothing. We just complain, we come and speak here in the house and nothing happens. There's a big problem in that ministry. We cannot be used to salvage a ministry which cannot perform.
Such is the matter that you invite the committee of the whole to sit through together with EPRA and the Ministry of Energy to come to the floor of this house and explain. Because, Mr. Speaker, when members of this house retreat to their constituencies this weekend, I can assure you, in every gathering that you will appear, people will want to lynch you because of the price that they are paying, even those who don't drive cars. You have heard that kerosene increased by a whooping 12 Kenya shillings.
Similar questions are expected to be raised in the National Assembly at a time when lawmakers will be returning to Parliament. Several MPs, including Matungulu Stephen Mule, have already indicated that they'll focus on finding answers to these questions. Already, Dagoretti North MP Simba Arati has indicated that he'll table a motion to suspend the implementation of the VAT. Speaker of the National Assembly Justin Muthui had already called on MPs who are talking about the issue in public meetings to instead raise the issue in Parliament, where they are assured of making a difference.
Nataka kuuliza wabunge, tafadhalini waache kuzungumzia huku sasa kwa mikutano Kimaini pale kwa chemba. Tuache sasa kwa sababu sasa wabunge hawezi kuja kuulia kama mwananchi pia analia.
The Standard Group, through its transformative agenda Transform Kenya, will this week be looking at the competency-based curriculum in depth. KTN News will tomorrow from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. be discussing curriculum live from Daystar University. Some of the topics that will be discussed in line with the interest of the public are the history and changes of education systems. The first education system to be introduced in the country was in 1967, which was 7423. Thereafter, in 1985, the public education in Kenya was based on an 844 system, and later in 2017 the competency-based curriculum under the 2633 system of education was rolled out. Educationist John Mugo says it's important for a country to review their education system, especially because times are changing. He says the CBC, despite causing public outcry, will prepare the current generation for the technological future and developed job market.
Kwa kila taifa, taala ni kitu ambacho kwa kila miaka mitano mnaangaliwa, mnafanya ile inaitwa minor review, lakini kwa miaka 20 hivi ni muhimu sasa kuangalia ile ambayo inaitwa reform. Sisi Afrika tusipoangalia mafunzo ambayo tunafunza kwa watoto wetu, kama ni ile tu rote learning kukumbuka, unakuta hata kazi ambazo ziko katika maeneo mengine ya dunia na kazi ambazo sasa zitakuwa kwa miaka mingine, ni kazi ambazo zinahitaji mtu ambaye anafikiria, anajua kutatua matatizo ambayo yapo, anajua mambo ya kushirikiana na wengine ambao tunaita collaboration.
Taxpayers may have lost as much as 13 billion shillings in at least 13 state agencies, 3 national funds and 5 donor-funded projects in the last year financial. Auditor General Nancy Gathunga revealed that details in a new report on the national government's books of accounts for the year ending June 30th, 2020. Of the 13 billion, ministries, departments and agencies failed to account for 3.1 billion shillings, 2.3 billion shillings involving national funds and 8.6 billion shillings in donor cash. And in business, consumer prices of sugar have risen by up to 30% as several factories grappled with production hitches due to the breakdown of machines and shutdowns shillings of routine maintenance. A 2-kilogram packet of the sweetener which retailed at 200 shillings as late as August, has hit 230 shillings in retail shops as level last witnessed in January last year. The cost is even higher in estate shops where a kilo of loose sugar is selling at 240 shillings for a kilo packet from 200 shillings previously. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah.
Tengisa kidole, agano kidole. Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical because
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Starting to build up this morning in different parts of the city. We're looking at traffic coming into Westlands. Already hot and heavy today. And for some reason, Landis Road is jam-packed a few minutes after 6 o'clock, going towards Kamkunji at the roundabout. Spilling off of Jogo Road. Not sure what is causing that snarl up there, but it definitely is there. We're also looking at something on Bunyala roundabout right now. Already building up with traffic. Ngong Road looking good, as is Langata Road for the moment. The Thika Superhighway starting to build up with traffic as well. But for now, smooth into the CBD. We're starting Tuesday morning off right. Hopefully we can continue like this. Let's talk in a bit and see what it looks like on the roads. But for now, you can get through without too much of a headache, right? Right, let's do it. SpiceFMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127. Let's keep things moving this Tuesday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
Yes,
this
it
is
How you doing? It's 8 minutes after 6 on this 21st day of September. John, am I too high today? I'm okay. Hey, I'm feeling like I'm up there in the air.
You're on top of the world?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning to you. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation on this lovely Tuesday morning. Nduoko?
Yes.
Habari yako?
Nzuri sana. Habari yako?
Kabisa. Naona leo wewe ni DJ.
Nakwambia.
City,
Fresh.
your requests.
Tell me
This thing is a bit of a monstrosity.
Send your requests to the DJ.
No.
DJ Ndu Oko.
I mean,
DJ
in the house. She's called DJ Ndu.
this system is beautiful. There's something lovely about it. It looks good, but it's like an orphan. It's not in the right place.
Are you saying that you don't believe Ndu can actually play the turntables?
I believe Ndu can walk on water, but that has nothing to do with the turntable.
She's the girl in the 1 and 2s.
Yes. You know,
Ndu Oko.
sometimes when I speak, I think to myself, I ought to hold my tongue.
Yes, please do that right now. How are you doing, City?
I have held my tongue. My tongue says I'm doing very well, held as it is.
Good.
Yes.
Good to see you. Peace is a good thing.
Peace is a wonderful thing.
Not as the world giveth.
Given I unto you.
Yes.
And then he says, be not afraid. Do not be afraid. For I have overcome the world.
Bas.
Yes.
Bas. It's a very interesting day today. Please tell CT admiration for his wisdom does not come on the introductory audio playback, neither from the proverb, but from how he handles situations, how he expresses himself and asks questions in interviews. Man, you are wise.
I think it's official, CT.
This man wants a job. Can you just sort him out, please? Macadero Mike has been saying, right hand man.
You know, I thank Mr. Macadero profusely. He is very kind with his words. Thank you, sir. And I thank him for being a keen follower of this particular show. Thank you. You should call in so that we can have a chat. Yes.
There you go, Macadero. Call in today. Not now, a bit later. A bit later. Yes. A bit later. We have an interesting conversation to have today. We'll be looking at what's happening in the papers, what's unfolding in the country and around the world. We'll also be asking ourselves that same question about the power of the voter. When we go to election and elect, how do we hold our leaders accountable after an election? We'll be joined by a former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Farah Maalim, a politician from Garissa County. So he'll be with us here today, and we'll be interrogating this particular topic, this and more in the Situation Room today. COVID-19 is still doing what COVID-19 is doing around the country. You were telling us yesterday, Ndu, about this elderly couple that fell ill of COVID-19 around Machakos County, going from facility to facility looking for admission. They couldn't get. And then unfortunately the man died, and the wife was then finally admitted to hospital.
Yes.
How is she doing?
She's still in ICU, and just interesting enough, by the time her husband was able to get medical attention, his oxygen levels were at just sub 60. So he was already in a very, very difficult position. But she is currently in ICU, and hoping that she can recover from this. So it's not a pretty situation at all.
All prayers to her. All prayers to her. And the family that is definitely dealing with this at this particular time. Having to start planning the funeral of your father while your mother is in ICU.
And chances that she would not be able to bury her husband.
This is just... It must be very, very painful. And our condolences to that family. And all the best. Indeed. We pray for your mom. Okay, so what else is happening?
Okay, so Kenya records 113 new COVID cases, 6 deaths. This is what happened yesterday, unfortunately. Positivity rate from a sample size of 2,680 in the last 24 hours. So that's from a sample size, it gives a positivity rate at 4.2%. Looking good in terms of positivity, but also looking at how important it is to continue with vaccinations in the country as this is being rolled out, encouraging more and more people to actually go ahead and get vaccinated. Right. Interestingly enough, this elderly couple who should have been because I'll use them as reference, this elderly couple who should have been in that age group that should have gotten the vaccinations were not vaccinated against COVID. So I think the clarion call right now is to have as many people vaccinated as possible currently. We're looking at global numbers of 229,817, 782. Just looking at what the rest of the world is requiring its citizens to do. Italy is requiring all workers to show a green pass certificate, everybody, whether you work in the public or private sector, to say that, look, it's compulsory for you to have a COVID green pass, which is a proof of vaccination or a negative test, or that you have recovered from the virus. It's the first for Europe and some of the strictest in the world. Anyone without a pass will reportedly face suspension from work and may have their pay stopped for 5 days. So Italy is taking this extremely seriously. It's due to come into force on the 15th of October. Remember, France is grappling with this. What should we do? How should we then make it necessary or important for people to actually get vaccinated? They're provided digitally and on paper as well, and are required to access Italian train stations, cinemas, restaurants, gyms, and swimming pools.
All right. That whole conversation about Kenya, UK and several countries all countries around the world, and the recognition of COVID vaccination certificates is big. Basically, so Kenya is no longer on the red list of traveling to the UK. So visitors from Kenya can go to the UK. However, you're required upon arrival at the UK to produce a COVID vaccination certificate, failure to which you will have to go to quarantine. Now, what is the certificate? According to the UK, certificate is what they know to be a certificate. What you come with from Kenya, they don't know what that is.
So where are you supposed to get the certificate which they know?
So you go and get vaccinated in the UK, then they'll know that this is a COVID vaccine certificate.
Or you get a test and they know you've been tested, and then you get a vaccination. So how many times are you going to be vaccinated?
You go and you get tested before you leave the country. All right. You present yourself in the UK with a COVID negative certificate, and then now you can enter the country. All right. That happens even in Kenya. All visitors to Kenya must show they have a COVID negative PCR test. That is standard. However, now there's the issue of, do you get to go to quarantine, or do you just come in and roll with the flock? If you do not have a COVID negative certificate, not a vaccination certificate plus the PCR, iko maneno kidogo ambayo itabidi ufanye. Yeah. But the new discussions that have taken place between Kenya and the UK have now removed that requirement for Kenyans to go into quarantine once you present yourself with a COVID negative PCR certificate. However, the issue of the vaccination is still there. So there's still a whole dance around, are you not? The UK High Commissioner in Nairobi said people travelling from Kenya to the UK will no longer be required to hotel quarantine on arrival in the UK. We are committed to working with Kenya and other countries on the UK's amber list on vaccine certification, and we look forward to the expansion of the policy to countries across the globe. This is simply the next stage in a phased approach to expanding the policy where safe to do so. So this whole issue is emanating from we are in the amber, all right, not yet green.
Yeah.
But you at some point you will be required to show that you have been fully vaccinated. The whole push by does the world recognize one vaccine certificate?
It doesn't.
Like the way you have yellow fever. You go with the yellow fever certificate anywhere. They see and they're like, all right, so you've been vaccinated against yellow fever. COVID? No.
No.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Because these very, very countries are the ones who authorize the manufacture of these vaccines in the countries where they are manufactured, under their supervision, under their license. Now, you import the vaccine from that country, and suddenly that vaccine isn't quite the vaccine that you should have. This is vaccine racism. I cannot look at it in any other light or call it any other name. It's vaccine racism. What utter nonsense is this?
This is going to be a big one. This will blow up. In coming days, this is going to blow up. Just watch this space. 18 minutes after 6:10. Let's take that break. Are we live streaming yet? Yes, we are. SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Wherever you are, say hello, and we'll be saying hello to you shortly after we take a look at the weather forecast for the day. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Losing a loved one is never easy. The lingering memories, the what-ifs, but in all the gloom, we find ways of celebrating them. And here at the Standard Tributes, we aim to give your loved ones that befitting send-off. Visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/tributes today and post your loved one's tribute. In addition, get access to funeral services from our trusted vendors. The Standard Tributes, keeping memories alive.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 14. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 13 today. Nyeri is cloudy at 14, highs of 23. Nakuru, clear conditions at 13, highs of 26 today. In Eldoret, it's mostly cloudy at 14. It'll come down to lows of 13 and highs of 24. In Mombasa this morning, well, we're told light rain in some parts at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 23, mostly cloudy conditions through the day. And in Malindi this morning, 24 degrees and mostly sunny conditions, highs of 29 and lows of 24. All right, let's look out into Kisumu where it's clear at 19, highs of 30, back down to lows of 19. And Kakamega this morning is clear at 19, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Out in Kampala, it's partly cloudy at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 18. And Lagos this morning is cloudy at 26 with highs of 30. It'll come down to lows of 25. It's clear in Joburg at 8. That'll be the low to it today, going to highs of 25. And in Kinshasa, 24 degrees, a hazy morning, highs of 34 and lows of 23. Out in Beijing, 25 degrees and sunny, highs of 27 and lows of 13. And looking into London, 14 degrees, a hazy morning as well, 22 and lows of 12. Paris is cloudy at 12, highs of 19 and lows of 10. And around things out in New York, the Big Apple is clear still Monday night. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 24 and lows of 19.
SpiceFM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So we know that Makadero Mike is already online and tuned into the show. Who else is online?
Quite a number of people this morning. Vincent Ogutu, Odiado Samia. Pamoja, where is that? That's a place, eh?
Mm.
Oh, okay. Odiado Samia. Yeah?
Busia County.
Ah, voila. Okay. Nixon Otieno says, good morning. The Situation Room tuned in from South Sea. Awesome day to you as well. Tuned in is Benson Mumo. Karabo Pane tuned in from South African Richards Bay. Jared Kani Rums tuning in from Nairobi. He says, let me spruce your morning with natural Baringo honey. Bring it.
Where?
No, literally bring it.
Natural Baringo honey. Bus.
Stanley Gashistan says, good morning. He says, interesting that the Diamond League winners got $3,000 US and the Kano Classic winners got 500 USD. Okay. Lonnie Hames Nara.
Diamond League.
It's Diamond League.
Yeah.
It's tuning
Those are got the local sponsor. It's a good start, though.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. APSA was giving 50,000 bob for each winner. Kenyan winners. Good thing.
It is a very good thing.
But we should not just sit there and say, okay, yeah.
Just because we started doesn't mean we can't do more or better.
What do you mean?
Yes.
Keep Kanos not new. Anyway, go on.
Oh, Lonnie Hames Nora is tuning from Brisbane in Australia. Ray John Odondi says he's tuning in from Kansas in the US. Please pass my regards to Dr. C.T. Muga. Regards, passed.
Joel, good to hear from you.
Unamjua?
Yes.
Very good.
Voila.
Pastor Joel is actually a reverend.
Oh, is he?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
King S. Depo is tuned in from Zambia. Patrick Ellie tuned in from Kisumu, as well as Kennedy Atinda, who's also tuned in from Nyakach. Samuel Ogbonna. Wow. That name is Igbo. He's tuned in from Germany this morning. And Bana Chak, who's tuned in from Lusaka. Moses Kashari tuned in from Georgia this morning. And Amos Freeman tuned in from Kimilili. This morning, I guess that Kimilili proverb is in the offing. Kelvin Kisanya tuned in as well and is watching. Wilson Nyangweso tuned in from Mombasa, Ganjoni. And Nyaganya Paul John tuned in as well. Collins, Chibawa Kalumba tuned in from Lushanya in Zambia. Good morning, good people. Tuned in from Getari, that's where Bishogoro Mukaya is. Mohammed Chumari tuned in from Wanye Close, specifically Wanye Close. Leslie Granddaughter tuned in from Jamaica this morning. And Winnie Alambo tuned in from Machakos. Clear, loud and clear, kama kawaida. Many more people online this morning. I see you. Karibu. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. City, today's proverb.
I haven't as yet gotten a proverb from Kimilili. But I can promise this. Before the week is over, I will have a proverb from Kimilili.
Very good.
So let me just then mention a proverb from this great country of Kenya.
Okay.
Okay. It is attributed to Kenyans. No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs.
Do Despite what?
No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs.
Have you seen Alice in Wonderland?
Okay.
That is not in this world.
Even read the book.
We're talking about this world.
Yeah, it's Wonderland.
Cats will never lay eggs. Brings us back to that conversation we were having at breakfast. Mayai ya jogo.
Yeah.
So people, Nduoko here
No,
does not know mayai ya jogo.
No, I did not say I did not know. I didn't say this. Do you see how things can be taken out of context?
I was there.
You were there?
Yes.
And
I agree with you.
Thank you.
But I also agree with Eric.
Whatever, CT. Pick a side. You cannot sit on the fence.
But I have picked a side.
Both.
I have picked two sides. Is two not better than one?
Yeah.
Mayai tunauza mayai ya jogo.
A fertilized egg. I know what a fertilized egg is. My argument is that a cockerel or a jogo cannot lay eggs.
You know,
that was my argument.
It gets to the heart of a very fundamental issue when it comes to understanding what is said. There is what is spoken.
And there's what is heard.
There's what is heard.
And
there's
what
you
understood.
understand. You see?
Eric was just looking at me and thinking, this chick, no pun intended, doesn't understand that there can be fertilized eggs.
Actually,
which is not where I was coming from.
When we speak, we often speak with the presumption that the people who are listening to us understand what we are thinking and trying to say.
Did you understand what I was saying, Eric?
You were not saying anything.
Or you can even say that you didn't say anything at all.
You're just sitting there in shock.
Wow. That part of the discussion, I'm not going to be involved in. I stopped with the jogo egg.
Tunauza mayai ya jogo.
And Baringo honey. It's a marketplace in here today.
Okay. Very beautiful proverb there, City. No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs.
No, they won't.
All right, so let's take a look at the headlines then. Yesterday, okay, I've seen, is that the Nation today or is it the Standard today? The cartoon, the editorial cartoon today. See, nakwanga page 6 somewhere around there.
You want the one for yesterday?
Today's editorial cartoon. So the editorial cartoon is basically reflecting what was happening at the High Court yesterday, where Justice Odunga once again came. Yes, it's on page 16. Another null, void, and unconstitutional moment. The judiciary squeezing KRA out of every penny that it has taken out of Kenyans. So yesterday, Justice Odunga, what did he do, George Odunga? He this petition that had been filed by several organizations, including Kitengela Bar Owners Association or something like that, and then we had the Retail Traders Association and Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya and others, challenging the implementation of this minimum tax, where KRA had basically started rolling out that, where it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as you've been in business for that 1 year, if you do not pay income tax, then you will pay a minimum tax, which is a percentage of your revenues in that year. Whether you've made a loss or not, pay tax. Now, Justice Odunga said, all right, I understand where you're coming from in terms of you need to widen the tax bracket. You need to bring in more people into the tax bracket. There are people who've been operating businesses and year on year, they're still operating, they're going concerns, but they file that they have made losses year on year and you're trying to net them. However, and Justice Odunga was using today's modern language, the vaccine that KRA has now come up with does not deal with this pandemic. Minimum tax is unconstitutional. It is null and void, and it goes against, flies in the face of the law. Very big win for very many small businesses in the country. Many, where that 1% is actually the margin that they make.
If I were to think and speak like a layman, which is what I am, meaning if I'm to speak and think like myself,
just be you.
I don't understand how it is that these people who have these small businesses escape tax. Because whatever it is they trade in has to be bought at some point. And even if they manufacture it, the raw materials have to be bought at some point. What am I saying? If you look at the indirect tax system in this country, My friend, you pay. Everybody pays. And then it's passed on to the consumer, who is us, who now carries that burden of everything that people have already paid for. So it isn't that they escape. It is that you want more. Because this is what KRA has been showing us in the not too distant past. More. It's not that we're not being taxed. No. How can we tax these citizens more?
It's basically looking at the income. So if all organizations, let's say even those ones that are paying income tax, EABL and Safaricom and all, they all have these consumption taxes that they're paying, right? And they're purchasing the raw materials, there's VAT, there's all this, the excise duty for, beer manufacturers and all. But then at the end of the day, when you've balanced your books, this is your profit. You pay a percentage of that as income tax.
Yes.
And then there are companies now that have not been, reporting any kind of profit. So we basically just, at the end of the year, net on net, we made a loss. So we cannot then declare any income tax. So KRA, in their justification, they're trying to see, how do we, you are not paying income tax, but the government is still providing you the services. You're operating in this same environment. All the services are coming in, but you're not paying an income tax. So we need to find a way for you to pay something. And that's why they came up with that minimum tax.
But that is understandable.
Yeah.
The argument is understandable. But then, are we saying that the burden of proof, who should the burden of proof fall on? Determining whether you have made a profit or not. Who? Who determines whether you made a profit or not?
It's you.
No. What KRA is saying, these people are not being honest.
Yes.
They're making money and they're pretending they're not making money.
Yes.
And I'm asking, can you prove that they're actually making money? Yes.
All right, okay, I get what you're saying right now. So the burden of proof then is on you, KRA. Can you prove that they are?
Yes.
If you can, then now this
find a way of bringing
this is a lazy
of bringing it about.
This is a lazy option. You know why? Okay?
Yeah.
Blanket. Everybody pays.
Yeah.
So whether you're making money, that's your problem.
That's up to you.
You're paying.
So whether you fall into the basket of those who are making or whether you don't, everybody's going to pay. Find it from wherever you're going to find it from. Whether you're being honest or dishonest, find it. As opposed to you actually then going to prove that this individual is actually or this business is making more and is making a profit and can pay, or this one is actually drowning.
The discussion that is had on and off and then goes completely quiet. No, not even quiet. It goes completely silent. Is KRA has a mandate, in my view, again, as that layman that I told you earlier on that I am.
Yes.
Okay? And as a common mwananchi.
Yeah.
You really need to get people to understand why it is important for us to pay tax. Because if we think it is punitive, we will avoid paying it.
We'll find ways.
We will look for ways and means of ensuring we do not pay.
Yeah. Now, this one was actually now being more directly punitive because it's telling you, out of your operating capital, pay tax.
Now tell me, how do you think that's going to happen?
So this is what Justice Dunga said. He said, the impunged amendment will clearly lead to favorites and sacrificial victims. Those who are able to pay taxes from their profits will not have their capital affected, while those who are genuinely in a loss-making position will be sacrificed at the altar of those who dishonestly conceal their profits. And then he went on to say, the respondents, and that is the KRA, have instead of putting in place systems that can enable them to detect the dishonest entities, they opted for an easier way out by casting the revenue net into the deep sea without bothering what the net will catch, as long as the culprits are also caught. With all due respect, that is how not to enact fiscal legislation. Fiscal legislation must be precise and must be specifically targeted to meet its objectives. Not just go and throw a net. Every creature.
Looking for fish here.
Yes.
Mara, you've caught a shoe. Mara, you've caught a plastic bottle. Huh? In the name of fish.
Yes.
In the name of fish.
In the name of fish. It's a big win.
It is.
Big win for small companies. So let's just take this quick break. It's 26 to 7. We want to take a look at the traffic, and then we'll look at more headlines. A very good morning to you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial *550*1# to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
In the quest of saving an ailing son, Sonia does the unthinkable. Will the guilt of her misdeeds haunt her, or will she come clean? Catch Mother's Guilt at 6 p.m. every Monday to Friday, only on KTN Home.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic
All right, so speaking
ballad.
up, just about 6:35, and we're seeing that the city centre is already getting jam-packed. That issue around the Kamkunji roundabout that started really early this morning, not quite sure what's causing that, but it's still heavy than getting into the CBD around that area. Langata Road not looking too bad right now. Bunyala Road was also building up really early, and we see that the traffic still continues there. Some traffic on Mombasa Road, but actually not too bad this morning. It seems to be behaving really well. The Thika Superhighway, however, is inching in the opposite direction, meaning traffic is backing up all the way towards Survey and likely to spill over even beyond that. Juja Road also looking like quite something right now. Getting into the CBD, however, is not too much of a pickle at the moment. We're going to have to wait, see what it looks like in a short while, but we know we will be in traffic hour soon, so you need to plan properly for that. The ICD route, an option to get towards the southern bypass coming off Mombasa Road. Use that. The southern eastern bypasses, northern bypass looking pretty good today. Bright and shiny is what we're doing today, folks. Bright and shiny. Let's see if we can get through this without too much of a scratch, okay? SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch just in case things get sticky. Text us on 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
So, the University of Nairobi yesterday, the Students' Union gave a strike notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of pain that's being felt, especially on the pockets of returning students and starting students who are actually starting the new term. It doesn't look really pretty here at all. Paying for first students as UON doubles fees. We started talking about this a little bit yesterday. First year students who started reporting to the University of Nairobi yesterday will pay double the fees their predecessors paid as the institution implements its new charges. Undergraduate annual tuition and administrative fees have been increased from 28,000 to 59,000 for the government-sponsored students, sparking protests from the Student Council. The figure rises even further when accommodation charges, which have been increased more than 7 times, were factored in. Accommodation fees are charged based on type of room and number of occupants. The fees have risen from 20,000 to... fees have risen between 20 shillings to 30 shillings per day, translating to 5,400 per semester, to more than 210 shillings a day, which is now looking like 40,000 shillings per standard room. The students yesterday mobilized some of the learners and attempted to disrupt registration of first years, but the demonstration at the main gate was quickly squashed by police, who lobbed tear gas canisters at them. That's a solution to everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
The new UN fees are almost double what first-year students in their public universities will pay. Those joining Kenyatta University, for example, will pay 41,000, inclusive of 7,000 shillings accommodation, whereas UN has not increased tuition fees from the annual 16,000. Students have been paying for about 30 years. It has increased other administration charges. So, in terms of a negotiation or dialogue, it doesn't look like it's happening. It's you pay or you don't come to school. That's what it is looking like.
You know, it looks like one of the things that our institutions of higher learning haven't figured out is this demand here for public participation. So this is more like determined and forced interaction. We are going to charge you this, now you deal with it once we've told you.
Yeah.
You know, you can actually increase fees. You can actually charge more. But you know something? you can actually have a conversation about it. Find a way of communicating it so that there is dialogue even as you are charging. I think the French word expression for it is fait accompli.
Wait.
Yes. I mean, you make a decision, that's it. It's become a fiat. Yani
Done deal.
We've said it. Kwani?
It's a done deal. Something as emotive as this one, I think the university should have taken more time.
A lot more time.
Make sure that there is a lot of public participation, a lot of awareness, and then a lot of campaigns.
Yes.
Have communications. Let the VC, for example, go to as many interviews as possible.
Yes.
Talk about it. So this is what's happening in our
Yes.
university. This is what we are thinking. In fact, start with the vision. Start with the positives.
Yes.
This is how we see the University of Nairobi in the next 10, 15 years.
Yes.
Right? We want to do this. We want to do this. By this time, we are already ranked so highly in Africa as a premier learning institution. We want to be in that league of other global institutions. So this is the vision. Now, for us to get there, we need to have this kind of operating cash.
We need these
now,
changes.
For us to get there, we also now will need to also look at this. Bring it in softly. Don't just come and say fees going up.
Accommodation 7 times.
Aye.
Of course, people are going to protest.
Because guess what? You have no students in the institution.
See, the thing is, because it's a public institution, you are almost guaranteed of having students.
Yes.
Okay? Because you're the largest public institution, you also have that feeling of,
we are.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm the
but
largest.
you have a vision, and the buy-in for your
So
vision
people
is
are
going to
gonna
come from these students.
People are going to come anyway. I mean, if you want to be an engineer and recognized by the engineers board, when you have the University of Nairobi degree, then that's the position where they're sitting and feeling. People are going to sit from 4. They will be selecting UON as first choice. People will be selecting UON. KUSIPS is going to place them in UON.
You know.
Hawatajua wajui.
One of the problems bedeviling the university is low intake. People aren't coming to the university as they used to. So which means the money that you used to get isn't there because people aren't coming. Now you're asking yourself, what are you doing to attract more students? Because you have the capacity for more students.
Yeah.
Okay? But with this action, you're diminishing the numbers. So of course, your cash crunch is going to get worse, not better.
It's going to be a tough one, this one. Let's watch and see. We have reached out to the University of Nairobi. We want to have the Vice Chancellor in the studio, in the Situation Room. So hopefully soon, we will have him here. City, what are you looking at now then?
Actually, I am looking at an opinion. And this is what the opinion is about. The opinion is Kenya has made major strides in war against terrorism.
Okay.
You know, they're saying this today marks the 8th day since the Westgate attack. In which
8th year.
8th year. Did I say 8th day?
Yes.
Please hit me on the head.
Okay.
8th year.
Okay.
Now.
Yes, it would help because I don't know where my mind is. 8th year, it can't be the 8th day. 8th year since.
It's today, right?
Yeah, it's today.
Okay.
And 67 individuals lost their lives. Okay? Now, what this article is doing is simply recalling and talking about the genesis of some of these issues and how it is that Kenya has tackled them. But there's something that I wish to point out. Everything that is written here, you look at the Anti-Money Laundering Act and all these acts that were... See, attacking or dealing with terrorism is not just a question of ensuring insurgents come in. No. Who finances them?
Yeah.
The conduits, the passages. So there have been laws that have been enacted to ensure that a very broad-based, multi-pronged approach towards tackling terrorism is in place.
Yeah.
But one of the things that is not mentioned in this article is the very thing. Something like terrorism and what is actually done, not everything can be put on paper and not everything is in the public domain. But what is certain is that when you hear that we are making gains, we actually are making gains. The thing I wish this article had spoken of was how it is that many young Kenyans keep being drawn into this dragnet of cocoons of individuals who end up being the perpetrators of these terrorist crimes. Because the numbers haven't reduced. There's
the numbers of radicalized youth?
No. It hasn't reduced. From this perspective, we don't have enough data to actually understand precisely how many people have gone. Because unless parents or relatives report that so-and-so is lost, you cannot know, all right? Many of them leave the country ostensibly to go and work. And money is sent to the parents for a couple of months. So they figure, our child, whoever this child is, must be working. And then they disappear. And it takes quite some time before it's reported. We don't have the exact number of those who may have joined these gangs, number one. Number two, we don't know how many of them have actually come back and have been rehabilitated, because there is a plan and there is a scheme that has always been in place to rehabilitate them. But thirdly, and more importantly, why it is addressing and talk about why it is that the lure to actually join these groups remains high. That's why I was saying the numbers have increased. We don't have enough data to indicate whether they've reduced. So I'm saying if people were being attracted before, there's nothing that I know of that indicates that the numbers have reduced.
But I think the conversation that we've had with, what's the gentleman from Mombasa? Khalif, right? Khalid. And the kind of programs that have been rolled out by government, by various human rights organizations and NGOs in the coast, for instance, indicate some progress.
There's a lot of progress.
Yeah, in terms of, how many parents are now talking about their children having gone, how many of those that had gone have come back and have been reintegrated into the community and are now gainfully employed or engaged. I think there's you can use that to say, anecdotally, there is some improvement in that front.
There's a lot of improvement, actually.
As you say that, then there's another story today, which is, again, in The Nation. Page 8. Mystery of faceless abductors and returnees who will not speak. Remember, we talked about two gentlemen who had been kidnapped. One was kidnapped just in the CBD. Pickup comes, man is there, man is abducted, thrown into a pickup, disappears, and nobody knows where he's gone, right? That man was Dr. Abdi Swamad. Abdi Wahab Sheikh Abdi Swamad was abducted a couple of days ago. And then there was another gentleman called Abdul Hakim Salim Sagar. Now, the two have been released. Their family have confirmed that the two have been released. But not the family, not the two abductees have actually talked about what happened, their ordeal. Dr. Abdulswamad's wife, Halima Mohammed, said her husband, who was abducted 11 days ago along Tubman Road in Nairobi, had been freed on Sunday evening and that he was in good health. She, however, declined to give any further details into the abduction and surprise release of her husband. It was the same script followed by Mr. Sagar's family, who yesterday said they had not so far noticed any signs of torture or injuries on the businessman, but they added that they had taken him to the hospital for checkups. Police have distanced themselves from any involvement in the disappearance and resurfacing of the two, deepening the mystery of the now rising cases of abductions countrywide. Mr. Sagar was abducted by people suspected to be the ATPU Anti-Terror Police Unit on August 18th after attending evening prayers. He was freed on Sunday and abandoned in a forest near Voi town and given 2,000 shillings as fare back to Mombasa. Somewhere in Voi, 2,000 shillings, and a nyumbani. Physically, he's okay, but he's currently in the hospital for checkup. We are happy that our brother has returned safe. This according to his brother, Faris Sagar. He declined to disclose more details about his brother's disappearance or health condition, only promising to divulge more as soon as they receive his medical report. He, however, called for respect for human rights, noting that the detention without trial is unconstitutional. These two cases, it's a happy ending for the families. Their kin are back. But it appears the kin do not want to talk about their ordeal. Do you know who abducted you? Do you know where you've been taken? What kind of questions were you asked? Were you tortured? Were you not? All those things. It's like these people who've just come back do not want to talk about
Equally
where they
significant, why were you abducted?
Yep. Who is it that abducted you and what were you talking about? What did they ask you? Where did they take you? Where did they hold you? What did they tell you when they released you? None of that is coming out. None. And remember, Muslim leadership led by SupChem chair and others had actually met with the DCI and said, please address these issues. And the DCI had promised to do everything possible to address the issue. Now, even before the DCI has done everything possible, They've been released. And the DCI is saying it's not the police. The police have said it's not us. ATPU have not even talked about it. So what happened to these gentlemen? And what happened to the others who are still missing? Who are
Against the
abducted?
backdrop of other disappearances, there was a businessman in Thika. There was a saga about his disappearance. Did he also not reappear at some point?
He reappeared and said that he had been made to wash dishes and sweep floors.
He said he became a houseboy for some time,
Mm.
and then after that was just let go.
Yeah.
Here you are, dropped out at a particular place, and go find your way back.
It's 10 to 7. Time for another short break, and then we'll be back and look at more headlines. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
The opportunities are here. Project X, the biggest youth empowerment project in Africa for young creatives, is here. Are you a model, a fashion designer, or a performing artist? Then this is the opportunity you have been waiting for. Register now for the opportunity of a lifetime by following at Opportunities Are Here on Instagram and The Opportunities Are Here on Facebook for more information and the registration link. Online selections begin on the 12th of October and registration closes on the 22nd of October. The Opportunities Are Here is a project by the Ethical Fashion Initiative in partnership with the European Union. Project X is co-produced by KTN Home and Vibes Radio.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay.
I think it's
Morning.
that the Speaker has said to members of Parliament, you have no right to complain about high fuel prices. The National Assembly Speaker Justin Muthui has faulted MPs for joining citizens in complaining about high fuel prices when they had the mandate of solving the problem. He challenged MPs to bring a motion to Parliament to reduce the price of fuel instead. An MP cannot complain when residents are also complaining unless they are saying they have failed in their jobs. Muthui was responding to sentiments by Embu leaders sharing a fundraiser in aid of St. Michael Primary School in Runyenje's constituency. MPs Michael Muchangi of Runyenjes and Cecily Mbarire, nominated, had joined other legislators in condemning the high fuel cost that had translated to a high cost of living. Muchangi noted that the Parliament would discuss the skyrocketing fuel prices and the unaffordable National Hospital Insurance Fund contributions. Mbarire observed that the prices of basic goods and essential services had gone up due to the fuel prices. Why, thank you. And called on the government to remedy the situation. The situation.
Serikali inafaa ifikirie maslahi ya Wakenya.
Okay. So, Dagoretti North MP Simba Arati is set to move that motion this afternoon. But still, we're talking about a motion. You passed a bill that becomes law. A motion is just urging the government to do something. Please find it within your heart to just hear the cries of Kenyans. Blah, 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 blah.
Don't find it in your heart. Just do
your job.
I mean, find it in your heart what? You know.
So the motion tells the government.
No. We lost our way somewhere, and our representatives lost it with us. And in fact, they have led us in losing the way completely. And then they keep asking the same questions as us and asking, why is it that this is happening? Why is it? But you have charted the path. With every single day, you show the citizens of this country how it is or how you go about losing your way in the decision-making process, making their lives supposedly easier. You end up making it, with every action, infinitely more difficult. And then you will be told a smattering bills which are really genuinely inconsequential to your welfare. But you know, this one the government brought up, but it was defeated. Honestly speaking, is it possible for Kenyans to actually take it for granted that they can get work and that they can look after their families and that when they need medical health care, they can get it. Is it really that difficult?
It would appear it is.
Yeah. All these laws that we keep passing, if they don't end up with that one thing, then why are we passing these laws in the first place?
We are jokers.
Huh?
We are jokers. That's what we are.
You know, on page 4 and 5 of the Star, the Auditor General does something else. There's something that the Auditor General has referred to as undocumented expenditure. Okay. There's a list of ministries that who have unsupported expenditure, meaning you've spent it, but looking at the budget lines, one can see it, but the money is gone. And it totals to 13 billion Kenya shillings. Okay? Now, the Ministry of Health tops this list. Yeah.
Ministry of Health?
Yep.
Well, it's a pandemic here.
1.2 billion. No. Pandemic, COVID, that one documented. You know, this is the money that was allocated.
There's some things that will happen here and there.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Like traveling will increase travel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, even during an emergency year.
How much? 1.5 billion?
No. I was beginning to break it down, but the total is 13 billion. Okay? It's unsupported. And it's ministries. I just mentioned that the Ministry of Health tops it.
Yeah.
That is for the financial year 2019. 2020.
Oh.
We haven't gone to 2020, 2021.
Okay.
It was an emergency year, but even in an emergency year...
That's actually not even in the emergency year.
Precisely.
Guy.
Yes. In an emergency year, the accounting officer has to explain why they chose a particular method of procurement and spending. Part of the problem is that they can't explain. Yes, it's emergency, we understand, but there has to be sound logic behind that particular path that you've chosen in determining the spending. So by the time the Auditor General is flagging it, it means the explanations given are insufficient. There are guidelines that are provided and you have not given ample proof to show that you followed those guidelines in actually expending this money.
So is it actually that the money has been spent without any documentation to show where the money, how the money was spent, or that the money was spent unprocedurally?
Both. It depends on...
So there could have been procurement, but this was not, I mean, if it was single sourcing, if it was...
Single sourcing can even be done. But again, the reason that I gave, you have not given sufficient reason as to why you chose that particular
this one does
source.
not qualify for what should be in single sourcing.
You've got it. This one doesn't qualify for this because of it's a mix of all that. Oh, by the way, there are many.
Hey. You may find that in some cases that maybe 40% of that may be justified.
It could even be 80%.
Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe 60% is justified and the 40 is not justified.
Eric,
the thing is,
be 80% justified. But if you have any inkling as to how auditors work, you know there's a checklist rule book. They come and say, okay, you are given 10 shillings, okay? And this is what you're supposed to spend it on. So, and you're telling me it's all spent. Okay, fine. So let's go through this and tell me how you spent it.
How you spent it,
Yes. This one, you haven't explained this one well. Put that on the side. This one. If there's an adequate explanation for it and there's documentation, they don't flag it. They don't, because that's the justification they're looking for. They're not going to go to the source. They simply want you to provide them with a documentation that justifies it. And if that documentation is, again, doesn't quite fit the bill, then you have an audit query.
If it doesn't come to their satisfaction.
Yeah, and the satisfaction is not something that is strange. It's known. By the way, in many cases, they even tell you in advance, we are coming, and this is what we want to look at, and this is how we want to go about it. So it isn't as though they come and shock you. It's not these commando visits where you're asleep and at midnight they've arrived at your house.
They knock and
say, okay, now let's go to the office. We want to know. You're told in advance, you know when they're coming, because they want you to prepare.
Yeah, and they ask for the documents that they want.
Yes, which they told you to prepare for them, so you know.
This will be interesting conversations, especially to look at Auditor General and the reports that they are produced by the Auditor General every year. And then that's what Abdul Somad was telling us, the MP, who is the chair of the Public Investment Committee. They look at the Auditor General's reports. They now have to look at the report and come up with a report to be adopted in the House. They already have a backlog of several years. Keep it here for more conversations. We're coming up to the top of the hour. We'll be looking at more big news in the next hour. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. The Kenya Parents Association has said it will file a petition in court to be included in the case challenging the implementation of the competency-based curriculum. Chairman Nicholas Mayo said parents supported the system and would therefore file a lawsuit to stop the petition challenging its implementation.
We are the representatives of over 10 million parents of this country who have taken their children to public schools, and we have not spoken. We have not taken the government to court. So we want to state our case, that we will join the case to state exactly our cause as parents representing public schools.
This as Education CS Professor George Magoha expressed his displeasure the petition in court over the CBC. Speaking in Kilifi County, Magoha said he would never accept cancellation of the education system.
On the issue of the CBC, ladies and gentlemen, let us be very sober. We are not begging anybody to support it. No, because everybody has a stake. Would you like, when you have gone to be with Allah, which we shall all do, and I go faster because of my age, would I like my seed to be able to survive? Unapenda mpira? Kasi ya fullback ni nini? Ni kucheka na watu ili wapite mpira ingie. So excuse me please, let me do my work, you do yours. Tupeleke kotini, we are going to meet you there. I can assure you as a fullback my Monday.
This event comes as KTN News through Transform Kenya will be hosting specialists who'll handle different topics around the CBC tomorrow from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Daystar University. Fire broke out in Ofafa Jericho High School in Nairobi and in Sigalame High School in Busia. According to a tweet by St. John's Ambulance, the fire at Ofafa Jericho High School has been contained. Several students sustained burns while others developed breathing difficulties after inhaling smoke from the fire. The students were rushed to Metropolitan Hospital, whereas others were moved to Avenue Hospital and Meridian Hospital. Meanwhile, a huge fire has razed down one dormitory in Sigalame High School, Funyala, Busia County. Reports say students using the dormitory escaped unhurt as no one was inside the dormitory at the time of the incident. The fire has since been contained. NARC Kenya Party leader Martha Karua has been appointed spokesperson for the leaders of more than 5 parties from Mount Kenya region. Speaking after a meeting, the leader said they were focusing on various issues affecting the residents of Mount Kenya and how they'll be addressed.
I just want to say, for avoidance of doubt, that this forum has today unanimously chosen the Honorable Mother Karua to be our official convener and our spokesperson.
And these are issues that apply to the rest of Kenyans. It is our view that unity of Mount Kenya is a step towards unity of the country.
The High Court has stopped the Controller of Budget from releasing money for payment of pending bills in Wajir County following a dispute on who is the legitimate governor to approve the clearance of the 2 billion shillings owed to contractors and suppliers. Justice Anthony Mrima issued the interim order after being informed that both the impeached governor Mohamed Abdi and the new county boss Ahmed Ali Mukhtar are actively in office. Mukhtar took over the leadership of the county government in May following the impeachment of Abdi by the Senate of a gross violation of the Constitution. The US is easing its coronavirus travel restrictions, reopening to passengers from the UK, EU and other nations. From November, foreign travelers will be allowed to fly into the US if they are fully vaccinated and undergo testing and contact tracing. The US has had tough restrictions on travel in place and since early last year. The move answers a major demand from European allies and means that families and friends separated by the restrictions can be reunited. And in sports, the Kenya national women's basketball team Lioness revived their AfroBasket quarterfinal hopes after rallying from behind to narrowly edge out Cape Verde in their last Group A match played in Cameroon. The victory keeps alive hopes of Kenya making the quarterfinals. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so traffic hour begins now officially, and we're seeing a lot of traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, getting into the city. Inbound traffic building up between the SGR and then out further back at Sabaki. So Sabaki towards the SGR. Outbound traffic also is a thing this morning. North Airport Road building up, going towards the Embakasi area. And then we have traffic that's then going out towards Outer Ring and then spilling into industrial area on some part. All right. So that continues for some distance into that. Okay, so where we had an issue previously on Bunyala Road, the roundabout then spilling over from Aerodrome, that continues. Langata Road now is packed to the rafters and it's spilling over into some parts of the southern bypass today. So as you're getting onto the southern bypass, probably Langata Road is not the place to exit. You might want to go further on using Gong Road to get into the city. CBD is already packed this morning. Everything spilling over into the CBD coming from the Thika Superhighway. Remember we talked about that traffic that was going beyond Survey? Yes, it has crawled its way back towards that. And we also have a lot of traffic coming off of Kiambu Road this morning. It doesn't look very pretty right now. Limuru Road all the way past the village market, inching along slowly past City Park, and then out towards the Aga Khan Hospital. That continues as well. A few minutes after 7 o'clock in traffic hour. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. But be safe as you're out on the roads. Tell us where you might get stuck or where you find a good route. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
it's 7
your
minutes
day.
after 7 on the 21st day of September 2021. Kenya's biggest conversation enters the second hour. A very good morning to you wherever you're tuned in. We are glad that you joined us this morning on radio, online. CT, today's proverb.
No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs.
This is a Kenyan proverb.
Yes.
Wow.
Eggs?
Cats.
Leave it to these avian creatures.
Right.
And a few amphibious creatures as well. And a few reptiles. Mm-hmm. Cats? No.
Not today.
Okay. I want to start the hour with some interesting story from the police.
Police?
Yes. And this is something that the police reported yesterday. You remember that DCI Twitter report, right? So I'm just going to read it, the thread by DCI. 2 girls aged 3 and 4 were last evening rescued by a police officer from a man who had abducted them from their home and was ferrying them to an unknown destination. The innocent angels had been lured from their home as they played by one Jackson Mutinda, who's 31 years old, who was arrested at Shell petrol station along Langata Road as he walked with the girls to a yet-to-be-established location. Chief Inspector Justin Ouya, an aircraft engineer at the National Police Service Air Wing, had just landed from a troops resupply mission and was walking along Langata Road when she came across the man holding the 2 girls by their hands. The 2 girls are aged 3 and 4. He was walking the minors towards Karen. After observing him and the little girls briefly, her intuition as a police officer, coupled by her motherly instincts, led her to being suspicious. She immediately stopped the man and interrogated him. She also spoke to the minors and established that the man was not their father, as he had alleged. Chief Inspector Ouya immediately restrained the man and raised the duty officer based at Wilson Airport, who responded with a contingent of officers instantly. After interrogating the abductor, it was discovered that he had lured the little girls from their home in Mudhurwa They're being found at Wilson Airport. They had come from Mudhurwa, promising to buy them a soda. The officers immediately set off for Mudhurwa in search of the parents to the minors. After a few hours, the distraught parents to the angels identified as Judy Nyakeo and Teresia Nyeri were finally traced, desperately looking for their missing girls. As they were reunited with their beautiful angels, the two parents could not hold back the tears of joy, thanking God for the miracle of seeing their babies alive and the officers for bringing them back home. The suspect is currently in custody at Langata Police Station, being processed for arraignment on child trafficking charges.
That abductor is very fortunate.
That it was a police officer and not members of the public.
Yes.
Hey, he'd been lynched.
But just think about that story. 3 years and 4 years old. These are very young kids. Lure them and tell them, I'm going to buy you a soda. And then start walking with them. From Mudhurwa, walking with a 3-year-old up to Langata Road. My God.
You know, Mudhurwa is a bit far.
It's far.
However,
right.
We haven't established that they actually walked. We know that's where they were.
That's where they were walking at the point.
At that point in time.
Yeah.
But think about it. For him to have targeted these girls, don't you think that he had been observing? Because he knew exactly where they were.
Yep.
He'd probably even established some familiarity.
Yep.
Hello, sweet, goes. Sweet. Then children, that age, that uncle who gives, yes.
Soda.
And this idea of parents calling every other person you know your children's uncle and auntie. So they can't even distinguish.
That's interesting that this encounter with them was most probably not the first, and that they had become. He was a regular showing in their area, and had probably spoken to them before.
Yep.
For them, because also, in as much as we say children at that age are vulnerable and gullible, they also are likely to go with somebody that they have seen
somebody
before,
who's familiar,
or somebody who's familiar to them.
Yep.
It sounds difficult to believe, but children of that age will not likely go with somebody that they've met the first time, immediately. No.
They will not go with the stranger.
They won't go with a stranger.
Remember the other time when we were discussing these abductions and the disappearances of young children, and there was this particular case of the boys who had been kidnapped while playing football somewhere in Jerusalem. Yeah, and it was the same. This guy would come and buy them sweet and play with them, and then this one day he asked them to follow him, and the boys went. And then they discovered someone on Kembu Road.
Yes.
And this shows there are very many cases of this. And it's kudos to this police officer. She's an engineer with the air wing. She's just walking. She's just finished duty.
And she looks
and wonders, something doesn't look
right here.
Yeah.
Chances the children looked tired.
Yep.
Probably parched. And you're thinking, why is this person walking with these children?
Kids like this.
And this guy, no. Also, remember, this is a mother.
Yep.
Somebody who's familiar with children or who is related, who is a parent. There is a way you can tell from the body language that these are people who are close to you. Something was not right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she knew something was not right.
You know, I'm thinking about this, and I'm also realizing that the calls for vigilance need to be a lot louder because those who are going to be involved in this criminal behavior are also getting bolder, and they're not giving up, right? For whatever purposes they want to abduct these children, whatever it is that they want to do, they're becoming more resilient in their quote-unquote trade. So I think as that continues, and even as law enforcement tries to do what they need to do to protect children, I think also the vigilance of the community also needs to rank, to pipe up some more.
Yep.
To see something that's out of sorts and not be afraid to call it out. You'd rather be wrong than not do anything. And I think it's very important. You see something, and if the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, chances are that situation is actually a bit odd. And that you have every right to do and ask. You'd rather that somebody's pissed off with you for a few minutes, but you could have salvaged a situation. You could have, like the young man who, again, on a bus coming from Rongai into the city, something here is not right.
Yep.
This child is
passengers in the
not
bus
even
and they're wondering,
answering,
so why? Yep.
The person with this child is not even aware of the child's name, and you say to be her mother. I mean, things like that. So, I mean, yeah, we talk about Nyumba Kumi and all of this, but also just seeing a situation that is not right. I think we need to be able to be in the face of such situations and, you know, not be afraid to call out such situations.
It's also something that it speaks of something here. You know, we talk up and we've even asked people to call in and give us their feeling and encounters with police officers. And many people come and tell you when they think of police, they think I'm just going to be harassed, I'm going to be arrested, I'm going to be...
Yeah.
But we forget that police are also parents. They're also our brothers and sisters and cousins. And they also live with us in the community. And they have that other side to them. They have this side to them. If you actually went to a police officer and said, I'm suspecting something is not right in this particular situation, that police officer is not likely
to ignore you. Yeah.
This particular police officer was basically just walking home and she thought,
going about her business.
There's something odd here. Calls the commander at the nearest police station, Wilson Airport. Police officers come. I mean, this is big. And this is one officer whose story should basically be told.
What was the officer's name again?
Let me see. Let me read the Chief Inspector Justine Ouya, aircraft engineer, the National Police Service Air Wing. Right? Actually, let's just celebrate this particular police officer right now. Senor?
Yes.
Yeah. This goes to that. Chief Inspector Justine Ouya, the police air wing. Very good job.
What it also points to, as much as we lambast all the ills in society on the police force, if you look at what the police do on a daily basis, the cases that we hear that portray what we call errant police officers and people who've gone renegade, they are few. So arguably the vast majority of our police service, the officers who actually are in that service, do what they're supposed to do and often go beyond the call of duty to do what it is that they're supposed to do.
And they work long hours.
Extremely long
in very
hours.
difficult circumstances. Yes. You can imagine police on the beat working at night, all right? Hey, it rained heavily last night, eh? There were police officers on duty.
Out.
Yes.
And they do not work in an office. They are supposed to be patrolling on the beat, carrying a heavy gun.
You know, why do you think I always ask the question? We demand all these services from the police, but do we facilitate them adequately? Do we ensure that they have the wherewithal to carry out all these duties as they are required to? It's a fundamental question. If it's a question of where they live, are those establishments fit for human habitation, really? Now, I ask the question not in jest.
No, sure.
In all seriousness.
Yeah.
After a heavy day dealing with errant, nonsensical citizens of the country, and then you go back to a tiny little corner where the division between you and your neighbor is
a curtain.
Sure.
Yes.
And in that moment, what are you? What occupies your mind after having been through this long day? What occupies your mind is then the people who need your attention, and then this little space whereby you have to do so many things at the same time. You know, deal with responsibility, rest. Think about then what you must do the next day.
Yep.
And you know, my dear, sometimes your family also live there.
This is it.
All right?
This is it.
And then you're supposed to wake up in the morning to go on and carry on with these duties. And then you encounter these ungrateful citizens who have nothing but negative things to say about you and to give you attitude at every turn.
Yep.
You know, this is very interesting because I won't forget a few months ago, and I was waiting for a vehicle and there was a busy stop there and there was a traffic policeman. So I was standing and he was standing. And, you know, I said hello to him, you know, just like, okay, I mean, he was the next individual next to me and it seemed a bit odd. And I was like, okay, so here's a cop. So do what? Like, say hello. And so the people were overlapping. And then he said something to me. He said, no, in Swahili, of course. And I understood what he said. He said, look, now, how do we deal with, look at this now.
Yeah.
Why is it so difficult to get people just to do what they ought to do? And I'm going to be here the whole day dealing with this nonsense. Just this. I mean, why? Why do we have to? And then you guys will call us terrible later. But he said, now, look, it was about 12:30. He said, I'm going to be here the whole day dealing with this nonsense. I didn't know what to tell him, honestly, at that point. I actually did not know what to say to him.
You have nothing to tell.
Because he was right.
You could be,
He was right.
You could be rude and tell him, but that's your job.
Yeah. I had to be silent. I was just quiet because I was like, for real. Because I could see it. And it was nonsense happening on the roads. And he stood there and he crossed his hands across his chest. And he was like, now, I'll be here till 6. Dealing
Sometimes
with
the circumstances. Now, imagine, like, for example, when you give us the example of Lolongo, when it was dusty and all. A police officer has been dispatched. Go and deal with that issue. All right? You don't have sufficient masks to wear to protect yourself from the dust. You are right there in the middle of the dust trying to control traffic, it's hot, it's sunny, it's dusty.
He was white.
And this is where you're going to be
He was
the
white.
whole day.
He started out blue. He was white. And then I also told you at some point when the traffic was so bad, the little demarcations on the road, the construction worker sat, tired as hell.
The
policeman sat. Policeman joined him and sat. He took off his hat and said, and I could just...
No
and
kiosk
I remember
nearby,
I told you guys,
no
I wish I had
water,
taken that
nothing.
picture. Because it doesn't matter. Police officer, construction worker, were
They're
all
just
tired.
And you know why? Because what was in the blueprint when this particular road was being planned catered for some of these situations.
Yep.
But the people who are in charge don't seem to care whether these conditions are met or not.
They don't give a hoot.
Yeah.
So you have a situation where somebody is being taxed beyond the requirements of their job. And, if we perhaps paused and just looked at the good that the police do, there are people listening who are telling me what good. Actually, they do a great deal of good.
Oh, what they deal with on a daily basis. In fact, yesterday I was just thinking about police officers and thinking, you get to there's some certain careers where you numb yourself to some things.
You do.
A doctor numbs themselves to the fact that you're going to lose a patient.
Yes.
You come back home. How was your day today?
It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah. How was your day today? Yeah, it was okay. I mean, okay, it means that 2 or 3 people died.
Yes.
Which is better than the previous day when 7 people died. A police officer comes back home. This is a traffic police officer who's been operating at night. You've been summoned on this particular part. Here there's an accident. It's fender bender. 2 very arrogant people are throwing kicks at each other, and you have to come and tell them, come on, you're on the wrong, you're on the right, let's go to the police station. I'm going to come and find you there. Then you've been summoned, there's another accident somewhere. You go and find people have died. Limbs strewn on the road. Mm-hmm. And it's your job to collect those limbs, put them on the back of that pickup, and take them to the nearest mortuary. As a police officer.
Eric, one of the things that I encountered as a young
And
man,
then that person goes home. They've spent 12, 13, 14 hours. In fact, sometimes on weekends, I hear traffic police officers, you may find they're working 24-hour shifts. You've been at work through the day, you're at work at night. And you've got to go and file the reports of all the things that you dealt with throughout that. So you're working longer than 24 hours, and you'll be back.
But think about it. When people complain about being on the roads for 13, 14, 15 hours in the last couple of weeks, the traffic police were right there with them.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that they were left to their own whim on the road.
And if it starts raining, you'll be comfortable in your car. This guy is still out there.
being rained on.
Yep.
Without a raincoat. There's an aspect of that work that I witnessed many years ago. I still have a sister who was doing her internship at Coast General Hospital. Mm-hmm. So I would sometimes, when she was on call, I would go and sit with her well past midnight. On Friday, to the letter, you could tell. After midnight, cases would start coming in. It was usually somebody had been cut, an accident, people had fought. But then there was 1 or 2 occasions when something even more bizarre. The police would bring in a decomposed body. If somebody has died and the body's been somewhere rotting, who do they call? The police.
Right.
That is, they have to deal with it.
Yep.
If you look at the array of unpleasant things that policemen deal with, sometimes you pause and ask, why do you think they look at the world through the lenses that they do? It's because their lived experience is not yours.
Yeah, there's nothing they haven't seen.
Yes.
Nothing shocks
This
them
thing
anymore.
which shocks you, that's what they see on a daily basis.
Yep.
And that's why that need for them to have psychosocial support is so absolutely mandatory.
Constantly.
And the people in charge have gone quiet on that thing again. Huh?
They started that whole conversation. They were going around the country, remember?
Of course, they went around the country.
Yeah.
And then, did we hear the end of that story? No, we haven't.
Maybe we don't need to hear the end of that story, but
maybe see it.
We just need to be assured that there is progress happening.
You know, this one is even simpler. If you have people who are in the police service who are your friends, as I do, you simply ask them.
Yep.
And they'll tell you.
Are you receiving the support that you need?
The question you ask at what?
What support?
Where? And you change the topic and discuss something else.
You move on to something else. You'll ask yourself, okay. There are interesting stories about Kenya Power in the papers today. Okay, we're going to look at them. Let's look at them after the traffic breaks.
Okay. Yep.
But in the meantime, an interesting story coming out of Taita Taveta County. And this is about Masiamba. A ranch in Taita Taveta has accused Parliament and a section of leaders in the county of sabotaging the Diaspora University Town project in Mwatate. Apparently, this project was going to cost 100 billion shillings. 100 billion shillings. And it was initiated in 2006 by a group of about 500 Kenyans living in the diaspora, with the intention to build a university, a hospital and schools on a piece of land in a Taita Taveta ranch. The project received the go-ahead from the first county government in 2015, a decision that was rescinded by the current MCAs in 2018. In 2016, the ranch entered into a partnership with Diaspora University Trust, granting them 1,500 acres for establishing this project. How many acres? 1,500. The ranch members yesterday accused the National Assembly's Land Committee of meddling in their affairs by blocking the transfer of the 1,500 acres. It comes after the committee toured the area to investigate an ownership row which is pitting residents of the 6,000-acre ranch and the members. The residents, who the ranch has identified as squatters, are opposed to this project. They petitioned Parliament over threats of eviction to pave way for the university town. The committee, led by Chairperson Rachel Nyamai, was accompanied by Mwatate MP Andrew Mwadime, who tabled the petition in Parliament, but the ranch has petitioned Parliament, the Judicial Service Commission and the Attorney General, citing the committee's violation of rights. This is one of those that you basically don't even know where you want to stand. There's a group of 500 Kenyans who've come together and they've decided, you know what, let's set up some big project in our county. We are going to put up a university, a hospital, and schools. They approach members of a ranch. They ask, and the ranch agrees, oh, you're going to put up those are very good projects. How much land do you need? 1,500 acres. It goes to the county assembly. MCAs, yeah, they pass. Let's have this land going to this particular project. Then, immediately after the elections, new MCAs come and they say, no, hold this. There's an issue. There are people who are resident in this particular piece of land, and they're saying they've been told they're going to be evicted because there's a new project of university, hospital, schools that's going to come up, and they're arguing about ownership of this particular piece of land. Now you ask yourself, so what exactly is going on here? Because by the time people are even petitioning the National Assembly, and they've already gone to the county assembly, and then there's a row here and there, and the accession of this land has already happened and has been approved, 1,500 acres is going to some project. What exactly is happening?
Whose land is it to begin with?
Whose land is it?
Ranchers, community.
And the ranchers have said it is okay.
The ranchers said, all right. I don't know whether all of them...
They are the legitimate owners?
I don't know whether all of them now certainly the due process has been followed, that all ranch owners...
And how big is this land mass?
6,000 acres.
6 is a lot of land.
6,000 acres. And they are just giving out 1,500. It's just a quarter.
Okay. So essentially, these current MCAs are saying that due diligence wasn't followed.
Yep.
Yes, and they want the process to be looked at.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, whenever politicians are reported to say such things, I cannot. I'm trying really hard to believe that the issues were overlooked here, and I'm finding difficulties. You know why? These MCAs are not people who've come from some other county.
They're community members.
Yes, they are. Is there a record of people having lodged complaints, gone to court about this thing? The answer is no.
This issue, we've even discussed it before.
Yes.
It was in the papers.
Yes, it was.
Where some MCAs were accusing some MCA chair of I don't know which committee of not tabling this report so that we can discuss this matter. So there's been a game that's being played at the County Assembly of Taita Taveta. And now the matter has been brought to the National Assembly. The National Assembly has decided, has seen it fit to go and investigate this matter on the ground. They have said what they have said. There's a lot of...
Might they be in this entire saga a mention of donors, would-be individuals who want to invest?
When we're talking about some 500 Kenyans in the diaspora, those sound like donors.
Now,
to the eye of the Kenyan on the ground,
they are donors.
Yeah, those are donors.
But you see why I mentioned, when you mention donor, you're talking money.
Yes.
And you're talking a lot of money. If I'm to go by the mention the projects that they intended. Now, the moment there are projects, it means there's money.
Yes.
Bas. Understanding of basic ABC understanding of a politician.
Yes, yes.
That group 8 theirs. Okay?
Now we have...
they were not in on the party at that point.
We start that conversation
We're
afresh.
starting it again.
Yeah.
We want ours.
At the end of the day, I think it's very important that the people of Taita Taveta get to understand this thing.
Yes, they do.
First of all, 500 Kenyans in the diaspora came together and they've all put in money into a kitty to start this project. Is this a community project? Is it a private project?
What is it?
If you get 1,500 acres from this, are you buying? Are you leasing? Are you getting it for free?
What's the arrangement?
All those questions need to be very, very clear to everybody in Taita Taveta.
And who is spearheading this entire operation?
Yes.
And what do those 500 people understand that they are doing? You know, it's one thing to put your money together.
Do they know
what it is? Yes. What they understand to be what they are doing, is it the same thing as the people of the county of Taita Taveta? Clearly,
what one side understands is not what the other side understands.
500 people are many.
It's clear. 500 people are many, not to know
to
what
be
is
on
happening.
the same page, all 500 of
all
you.
of us are in agreement about this is what is being offered. This is what then we must do.
Or
quid pro quo. It's not.
Do they exist?
Balance. Or are these 500 people actually there?
I mean, since we enter the realm of speculation, may I speculate?
Yeah.
Please.
You know how it is. Somebody says, there's beautiful land overlooking God knows what else and which hills.
Yes.
And it's near River XYZ. But more importantly, there's Lake XYZ.
Yes.
Okay?
And
next to
natural
it
springs.
Yes, and literally next to it, you have Savo National Park.
Yes.
And 500 people know that they're buying plots.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM. "24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Gone are the days when hiring should be about hitting the brick wall, because we understand how much it means to have the ideal candidate working for you and your organization. That's why at Standard Jobs website, we offer the complete employer dashboard that lets you interact fully with applicants, lets you track the full hiring process through a qualified specific smart search tool. What's more, we offer a full-on custom branded page that lets your company stand out with your own to choose custom page. So visit www.standardmedia.co.ke/jobs
Cloudy conditions
today.
in Nairobi this morning at 16. We'll see lows of 13 today and highs of 25. Nakuru is sunny at 15. We'll see lows of 13, highs of 26, and 14 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's cloudy. It'll go to highs of 23. Eldoret sunny at 13. Highs of 24 and lows of 13 today. We're looking at sunny conditions in Mombasa, 24, highs of 29, and come back down to lows of 24. It's also sunny in Malindi at 26, slightly warmer there. Lows of 25 and highs of 29. Kisumu is sunny at 20, highs of 30 and lows of 19. And in Kakamega, 20 as well. Sunny conditions going to highs of 29 and lows of 15. Out in Kampala is partly sunny at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is sunny at 23. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 30. Johannesburg, sunny at 8. A bit of a chilly morning, highs of 25, however, back down to lows of 8. And Lagos, mostly clear conditions at 26. We'll see lows of 25 and highs of 29. Kinshasa, still hazy morning at 25, lows of 23 and highs of 34 in the city.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, this resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Social media was on fire.
Yes.
Every 5 or so minutes, some motorbike guy would come in, put his 20 bob play, take off again. So I decided, let me put my 20 bob also and see. And I put 20 bob. It came. This is a dusty little village, and I'm thinking, there's slot machines in this place.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, into the city this morning. Quite a lot of traffic in the CBD. That issue that started very early around the Kamkunji roundabout still continues. And we have traffic spilling over from Landis Road then into that part. And it will continue for some time from all indications. Aerodrome Road today is taking a lot of the traffic that's coming off of Langata Road. And it's joining with that which is coming from Lusaka. It's also coming in from other parts and then joining onto Uhuru Highway all the way from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout out towards Haile Selassie through and through to the city out towards Westlands. Hey, looks like a mess this morning. Also coming out of Westlands outbound as well is an issue. Ngong Road now where there was nothing is building up. We're also seeing Langata Road. Remember we saw that it's spilling over from Southern Bypass out towards Langata Road. That doesn't look pretty at all. My goodness, the thickest superhighway today is a sticky mess. All jam and no butter. It's not moving smoothly at all. Kiambu Road jam-packed. I think now we're at 4 lanes coming out of Westlands. Muruga. Doesn't look good at all, guys. So this is that sticky situation we try to avoid. But today it looks like we're right in the middle of it. Help us out, guys. Are you getting a good route that other people can use? Or are you stuck somewhere where others need to know about? Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
All right, it's 22 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation continues in the Situation Room this and every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, and C.T. Muga. Now, let me read 2 headlines. One is, today is Tuesday. It's Financial Tuesday. But before we actually do that, John, let me tell people about what's happening with this matter of CBC. Competence-based education. Are you a parent? Are you a teacher? Or a stakeholder in the education sector? How do you feel about the new curriculum, CBC? We have seen what people have been saying on social media about CBC. Are they parents? Are they not? Are the children actually feeling good about the CBC? Are the parents, are the teachers feeling the same about the CBC? To weigh in on the conversation, tune in to the Transform Kenya on KTN News this Wednesday, that's tomorrow, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. as a panel and audience of carefully selected subject matter experts and thought leaders unpack the contentious issues around Kenya's biggest debate today, the CBC. That's tomorrow, the 22nd of September, from 7 to 9 p.m. live on KTN News. Don't miss out. That's going to be a very interesting conversation. We'll have some interesting panelists and subject matter experts. CBC is a big one. So, the headline I was telling you I'm going to read. Today, being Tuesday, we have the pullout is the Financial Standard. Macharia Kamau of the Standard has written a story on 2 pages. Power players and politics, the toxic mix fueling Kenya power wars. For years, the power distributor has been on a steady decline despite being a monopoly. And now, an all-out war between a seemingly overbearing board and management over tenders is lifting the lead on what really ails the state-owned firm. It goes on to now list what is happening, what's the issues that are going on with Kenya Power. Remember last week, the parliamentary committee had summoned directors of Kenya Power. Some directors showed up, some did not show up. MPs told them, go away, come all of you, or don't come at all. And then the ESCC has also summoned the board as well. Just recently, the MD left, and we have a new MD in an acting capacity. We just last year, was it just the year before, several members of the board left, just resigned, and then new members were appointed. All those things are happening with the Kenya Power. As all that is happening, on page 10 of The Nation today, your electricity bill is set to rise again this month. Your power bill this month will be the highest in 38 months following the latest review of electricity prices by the government last week. On Friday, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, increased the fuel cost charge from 3 shillings and 77 cents last month to 3 shillings and 88 cents, the highest it has reached since July 2018, and the foreign exchange fluctuation adjustment from 68 cents to 76 cents per unit. The higher the cost of power is set to further burden households at a time when the prices of key commodities such as cooking gas, cooking oil, fuel and food have risen sharply. But what makes your electricity bill go where all the money is going? Let's explain this to you. This is The Nation doing that, okay? Your final electricity bill incorporates multiple charges and taxes that go to different companies and government agencies involved in the generation, supply and distribution of power and regulation of the electricity sector. So, the components. Component number 1 is called consumption charge. Abu, open that bill of yours, by the way, as we talk about this. Yeah?
Yep.
Open that bill.
That particular one?
That bill that you have. Yeah? It's prepaid or postpaid?
Prepaid.
Yours is prepaid. I'm going to open mine, which is also a postpaid one, as we talk. Component number 1, consumption charge. The consumption charge is the single largest component of your power cost and is billed per unit of electricity consumed over the month. The proceeds are used to pay dozens of independent power producers for electricity supply to the sole distributor Kenya Power through power purchase agreements. For instance, if your household electricity usage this month is 200 units, your total power bill will be 3,835 and the consumption charge will be 2,037. Well, most of the electricity, the second component is called fuel cost charge. Umeona wewe component yako ya nini?
Fuel.
Have you seen consumption charge from your thingamajig?
No.
Okay.
I have fuel. I have, of course, VAT.
Yeah.
I have fuel energy charge, forex charge, IPRA charge, Warma charge, the REP charge, and then the inflation adjustment.
Higher. You continue like that.
I continue that way.
You just continue like that. Me, I'm going to tell you my bill. So, with the consumption, 50 units consumed, there's a bill here that has been presented to me of 984 shillings. Fuel cost and levies, 297 shillings. VAT, 167. Adjustments, 193. Monthly bill, 1,255. Okay? So, fuel cost charge.
Well, this could be the fuel energy charge.
Yes.
This is one of the... On the prepaid, it's the fuel energy charge.
Okay.
You're talking about
on the
fuel
postpaid,
cost.
it's called fuel cost and levies.
Right.
While most of the electricity consumed in the country is hydro-generated, that's 32% of our mix is hydro-generated, geothermal produces 47% of our energy mix. A significant amount, that's 7%, is still generated using diesel to burn turbines. But the price of diesel is volatile, and it's also reviewed monthly by EPRA, which requires a consequent adjustment of the fuel cost charge each month to enable the expensive thermal electricity producers to recoup their costs. Despite these producers being only the fourth largest electricity producer, the diesel costs alone make the second largest contribution to your power bill after the consumption charge. And this, if you are using 200 units, remember we said 200 units, you're going to have a bill of 3,835. In this 200 units, your fuel cost charge will be 776 shillings. Then there's going to be forex fluctuation adjustment. Power purchase agreements between Kenya Power and the independent power producers are denominated in foreign currencies, which affects the costs incurred by the utility company in compensating them relative to the shilling. This necessitates the foreign fluctuations to come in. Final inflation adjustment. The ever-rising cost of electricity, supply, distribution and regulation means a higher cost of electricity is catered for by the inflation adjustment rate. All those things go into your bill. Now, EPRA has said, let's adjust the fuel cost charge, all right, from 3 shillings and 77 last month to 3 shillings and 88 cents this month. That goes into your power bill for the next month. Have we ever understood the billing of power? If you ever understood this whole conversation about, why are we paying this much? Where does the money come from? Where does it go? What does this mean?
When you find the itemization of these things is all good and well, there is, of course, the argument that when they're itemized, you then get to understand the details of the final costing. But it also plays a different role. It confuses you further. When there are so many things being explained, and they all fall under one category, tax, you're not really sure. Now, if you tell somebody that they charge this per 1 kilohertz, somebody says, so kilohertz ni bangapi kwa nyumba? Okay. Do I need a kettle? Do I need a fridge?
Hour. How many kilowatt hours do I use when I just switch on the lights?
About that?
First of all, what do I need in the house to be able to use a kilowatt? Okay, so if you then can quantify it for me, when you say it's an hour, then I know. Now, how many exactly? Who sits and counts?
Okay, I'm going to put on my iron now. I'm going to use 3/4 of a kilowatt hour. Nobody does that. You don't do that, do you?
Yeah, but then there's something that perhaps ought to be discussed. It's not often discussed. The meters. The meters that we use for determining or the things that capture the cost of what we use, okay? It's a simple question I want to ask. How do we know that these meters actually do what they're supposed to do? Simple enough question. How do I know if it's slow, it's not perhaps capturing the usage of electricity it should, or it is too fast, or sometimes it gets a cold and gets a hiccup and doesn't quite work. There are all these details. And then which of these meters actually do...
And then there's a zone.
I think you get...
Where you are you paying the same for a unit of electricity as somebody who is in another part of the same city?
You see, now you introduced something that I had not even thought of. Are you telling me that there are people who pay electricity, they pay things...
Yeah.
Yes,
there are areas that are
even
categorized as industrial.
Absolutely.
And then now, if you live nearby there, and the hasn't been confirmed to me personally, but you'll find that people who are paying a lot more in some areas than others.
This is it's been confirmed
because of the zoning.
You have people who spend 1,000 shillings. Even this is now prepaid, and I've really sought to understand the reasoning behind this or how it works. And this now, if we're looking at zoned areas of the city, if you're spending 1,000 shillings on units, for example, in certain areas there are people who, and down to the unit, there are people who will get 64 units for 1,000 shillings. In another part where you're spending 1,000 shillings for a unit, there are other people who will get 72. And then there are other people on the other side who will get 58 or 56. Same 1,000 shillings that you're spending on units. Same thing. The bill that is presented to you, assuming that you're in a household, 4 people consuming the same, around the same, some people will get a bill of 10,000 shillings. Somebody else will get a bill of 4,000 shillings, 6,000 shillings. So I've always tried to understand why do we see this discrepancy, especially on the prepaid? If I'm spending 1,000 shillings, shouldn't it be that I get a flat rate or a flat number of units? 1,000 shillings is going to buy me 50 units, for example. Why is it that I spend 1,000 shillings here for somebody and get 64, and in my neck of the woods I get 58?
But is this not something that the Competition Authority does it not fall under their purview? Because it may be something that can actually be explained and even equally easily understood. But it still is, should we say, a deep, dark...
The biggest secret of our time. I don't understand.
There's lack of clarity. You know, even as I'm thinking about this, I'm reminded of something that one of our listeners mentioned to me the other day when we had the Competition Authority gentleman here. Okay? And this is what he raised. He says, you know, one of the things that the Competition Authority perhaps ought to also explain to us so that we understand, you know, there's this issue of mergers and acquisitions, all right? For instance, there is the BOC gases, all right? Now, with that acquisition, what then does it not do? Does it not lend that particular sector of the economy towards a near monopoly? Now, how does this then reflect on the provision of, say, medical oxygen? In short, it's an argument that makes sense when you think of KPLC because they have a monopoly of sorts. Now, anything that is consumed by the public generally and which we rely on for our daily sustenance and just basic living, the attention given to it, attention not in terms of just costing, but so that we understand you are going to cost it anyway. You are going to give us the final bill anyway. But when you write it down, doesn't mean we've understood it. Can it be explained so that we understand?
Just tell people, you know, this is the thing. Because what happens now, look, if we're looking at something as a power bill, which everybody is consuming, I don't think there's anything wrong with letting people know that this is what it's going to cost you. This is how, if we bill you at the end of the month, or this is how much you're going to get if you spend a particular amount on units. When you don't do that, then it gives rise to this thing that people are asking themselves, are there some shillings then that are being scraped off the top for something else?
Actually, don't just quantify it. Make it relational. Explain. A kilowatt means
this. That when you put on your iron,
yes,
when you flip your switch
on. This is what it means.
Yeah, put on your fridge.
If you have a fridge and you have a freezer, this is what it means.
Yes.
If you boil your water using electricity, this is what it means.
Voila.
Okay? Now, is it really that difficult to explain these things?
No, it's not difficult. I mean, actually, if you just look back a number of years back, on KBC, Kenya Power used to power sponsor program.
They did.
Ready Kilowatt.
They did.
Right? And in the Ready Kilowatt, that show used to explain electricity, so safety in handling electricity and all those things. If they continued, that's where it would be right now.
Did you hear anybody complaining about electricity then?
But not many people had electricity then anyway.
So you can't complain about something you don't have.
Yes. Electricity is, I have electricity. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Those things are now, the rest are details. I have arrived. Now it's just become a common thing. So we start now questioning, what do you mean that fuel cost adjustment? What's that? What do you mean?
That fuel cost adjustment, then I think I understand.
You can just see it's fuel cost adjustment.
Yes, EPRA does a thing.
Yes.
That one.
It adjusts.
It's going to do a thing for me also.
It adjusts.
That enough.
There's an opportunity for Kenya Power to explain a lot of these things. Basically, it's just consumer education on how do you save power. You know, those things are even telling you when you have a plug, when you have something plugged into the socket, even if it's off, it's still consuming some latent power.
Yes, it is.
How do you switch it off? How do you remove it from the socket? How do you... All those things, there's great opportunity for that to be done.
Tips for people to be able to consume their power more efficiently and better at an affordable cost. It doesn't hurt the operator to do that, to share, because these are your consumers.
Buy these kind of appliances.
At the moment, you are their only source of power, literally. So you want to make the relationship good, no? You would think, right?
Yes. Logical thinking lends itself into that way of reasoning, but is that what really happens?
No, it doesn't. And also, very many organizations, even those in the telco, people keep complaining to date about telco undercharges. Okay, so when I buy 1 MB of data, what can I do? What can I not? What does that mean? How am I consuming? How am I not consuming? There's a lot of need for awareness on very many things.
And when I
for
pay
consumers to understand.
when I pay cash, does it work the same way as when I get bonga?
Yes.
Do they last
Do I
the
get
same?
less for
They
bonga?
last the same.
I get less for bonga.
All those things. It brings back that conversation about consumers and putting consumers at the fore. And getting consumers to understand. You must have a duty to explain to your consumers what exactly you mean. Even back to the point of, okay, so this is a particular product. There are labels here. It says no sugar, no additives. What does that mean? No sugar, no additives. No coloring, no sugar, no additives. What's the meaning of that? There needs to be a lot of consumer awareness. Coming back to power, that's when you see all those things, you're wondering. So if I've bought power for 1,000 bob, and I've only gotten power worth 500 bob.
When you have this system, this prepaid thing, I don't have it, so I'm just asking out of ignorance. Does Kenya Power come to assess your needs before they determine what it is that you may be able to use per month, or do you figure it out yourself?
Sorry, I don't
What do you
understand
mean?
what you're even saying.
What do you
Okay.
mean? What do you mean?
I have a house,
All
I
right.
have electricity.
Right.
Okay? This is where I live, and these are the appliances that use electricity.
Right.
How do I know this is what I need per month?
You'll figure it
You
out.
figure it out as you go along, my friend. Because if you realize you've put in
You see what you
put in
need per month.
tokens,
The thing about prepay is that it's not a per month billing. It's per consumption
per
billing.
use.
It's how much do
much
you
you
have
use it.
now? Buy the units.
You can buy 50 shillings, you can buy 5,000.
You can buy 50 shillings.
Yes.
Very good.
It may not last you very long, depending on what you're consuming in the house, but you can. There's the option of buying that. The thing is that you figure it out as you go along. You say that, all right, I've put in 2,000 bob, right?
Yep.
And I've seen that I've been able to go for a number of days, and these are the things I've done. I've powered my freezer, I've used the iron, this. Then you know, okay, 2,000 bob might last me this long.
With the
So
kind
you-
of lifestyle that I lead.
have, this is how much. So then you say, okay,
2,000 would
maybe
last
it
me this
finished 2 weeks.
Mm.
So then you say, okay, then in a month, maybe I'm going to be using
3,000.
3,000.
So it's a self-help.
Yeah, you figure it out on your own, my friend. KPLC is not going to come and tell you, CT, what do you have in your home? Then I suggest that you buy 10 units. No. You figure it out, my friend.
It's like
Sorry,
saying
it's your home.
Yeah. It's your home, it's your consumption.
And you don't have
It's
to use
private.
electricity.
If you want to use the sun, daddy, it's up to you.
Yeah, just use the sun.
It's private. It's like walking into a shoe shop and saying, I want to buy a pair of shoes. So how many kilometers do you walk in a day?
Do you prefer high or low?
This shoe is not
Open
good
or
for you.
closed? No.
By the way, those are questions they ought to ask.
But there are very many experiences of people with the prepaid as well. You buy at least you never know. You bought 2,000 shillings worth last month, you got X number of units. You buy 2,000 shillings worth this month, you get X number of units. No, that is taking 30 days. You buy 2,000 shillings at 8 a.m., you get X number of units. You buy 2,000 shillings at 4 p.m., you get different number of units. Same day.
You know, with regards...
Same place, same meter.
With regard to fuel, I remember asking this question the other day when I was at the fueling station. I told them, yes, they increased the price of petrol, isn't it? Kerosene. Okay, now there's this other one here you guys call V-Power.
Does it also?
Which category is it? Because it's clearly not... And they looked and said... see, through the other, I said, which one? Kerosene or just the other one? Because they're all fuels, by the way.
So in your books, V-Power there's super,
yes,
there's diesel,
yes,
there's kerosene,
yes,
there's V-Power.
Yes, so
Surely most. Soita says the Competition Authority should promote consumer awareness on matters electricity with like-minded partners. Yep. I'm not sure whether Kenya Power is our like-minded partner.
That's
what Soita says.
Partners. They may not know it.
Their partners, are they of the same mind?
No, they are of the mind that they will cost you and you will pay. So they're like-minded.
So Kenya Power, others like internet service providers and others, all of you need to explain to people. When I purchase this is what I get. All right? When you tell people, okay, so you've taken this kind of package, or you pay 2,999, you get this, and the other. So what does that mean?
Is this some remedy when there's interruption in the bill? When we look at it, is there a place where they say power interruption for half a day? This
for
remedy.
half a day. Or on this day you didn't switch on.
Yes. Is there such an indication?
No.
Nothing like that.
Because look at that
think
meter.
that you're going to have traveled for some days.
That meter never stops.
Nothing like that.
Never stops.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues. In the next hour, we bring back the conversation about the voter, the power of the voter, and the responsibilities of elected leaders. We'll be having in the studio with us the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Farah Maalim. He'll be here. We'll be asking him, Mr. Speaker, what is the difference between a motion and a bill? Today, Simba Arati is going to be moving a motion. Is that as powerful as a bill? We'll hear from the former Deputy Speaker. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Parents whose children joined the University of Nairobi yesterday have decried increased fees. The parents say the fee is 3 times higher than what was paid in previous years. This comes as UON students had issued a strike notice urging first-year parents across all UON campuses in the country not to report for admission until the matter is resolved.
Sisi tulikuja tukijua the fee is affordable both for the academics and for the hostel, but unfortunately the fee is thrice what has been used to be paid here.
Mimi nilikuwa nafikiri nalipa kwa semester moja ama mbili, singine naenda kutafuta. Juu niko na watoto wengine shule ma secondary school, high schools. Kinalipa kidogo kidogo, ikifika mwisho wa mwaka nipate nimeshamaliza hiyo pesa yote mtoto afanye mtihani.
However, Vice Chancellor Stephen Kiama says the increased fees are aimed at creating better services and will only affect new students. He said the payments will be made in installments, urging parents not to be under too much pressure.
As also ensure that those students get the laboratory materials they need to be taught. They need good accommodation where they sleep. And to do that, you need, therefore, the financial resources to be able to cover for those costs. We don't want anybody to miss education at the University of Nairobi. So we will support them, even if it means giving them some work in what we call a work-study program, to ensure that they can do some work and earn a little money to pay. And then also others will provide for them that they can pay in installments based on their ability to pay. So we have put all these mechanisms in place.
Kiama further said the review was also due to lack of sufficient capitation to run university programs and activities.
The amount of money we receive on capitation from government cannot cover our costs. We receive from government, just the previous year, we received like about 5.2 billion Kenya shillings. Our budget is about 14 billion Kenya shillings. So you can see. So we must ourselves, any activity we initiate in the university, we must cost it.
It's important for our country to change its education system after every 5 years. Educationist John Mugo says this is because the world is changing and the education system needs to be in line with a new way of thinking as well as doing things. Mugo says this is why it's important that parents embrace the competency-based curriculum which aims at giving a child both language literacy and language activities.
Kwa kila taifa, taala ni kitu ambacho kwa kila miaka mitano naangaliwa, mnafanya ile inaitwa minor review, lakini kwa miaka 20 hivi ni muhimu sasa kuangalia ile ambayo inaitwa reform. Sisi Afrika tusipoangalia mafunzo ambayo tunafunza kwa watoto wetu, kama ni ile tu rote learning kukumbuka, unakuta hata kazi ambazo ziko katika maeneo mengine ya dunia na kazi ambazo sasa zitakuwa kwa miaka mingine ni kazi ambazo zinahitaji mtu ambaye anafikiria, anajua kutatua matatizo ambayo yapo, anajua mambo ya kushirikiana na wengine ambayo tunaita collaboration.
Mugo further states that from the 7423 system in 1967 to 844 in 1985 and now 2633 system in 2017, the country's education system has improved and is preparing the future generation with both technological, language and life skills.
Hii mifumo
ambayo inatumika na shule za kimataifa inalenga kumhusisha mtoto, tunaweza ita kwa kimombo holistic development, kuangalia kwamba mtoto anakuzwa kwa kiakili na competences zingine au studies zingine ambazo ni muhimu kwa mtoto kuweza kunawiri.
This event comes as KTN News through Transform Kenya will be hosting a panel of education stakeholders who will hold discussions around the CBC at the Daystar University. The discussions will be live from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow. Health CS Masi Mwangangi will today receive a donation of pediatric ARV treatment for children, the PDTG strawberry flavored and adult DTG, which will be received in the country, has better treatment outcomes than other ARVs from the UN Family and Clinton Access Initiative. The event will take place at Nyumbani Children's Home in Current from 10 a.m. The Ministry of Health says that we are receiving the strawberry flavored ARV drugs for the first time in the country. And finally, Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi has been faulted for failing to attend the Azimio la Umoja event that was held in Mombasa town and graced by ODM leader Raila Odinga. Kingi, who has since allied himself with the Pamoja African Alliance Party, was the only governor from the 6 coastal counties who failed to attend the event, as his Kwale counterpart Salim Vuria sent apologies for he was out of the country at the time. Ganze MP and Kilifi County ODM Chairman Teddy Mwambire said that Kingi was continuing to isolate himself, and by failing to attend the event, he had shown the coastal population that he is a selfish politician. The National Police Service and Nairobi Metropolitan Service has launched a multi-agency operation to remove parking boys from the Central Business District. Central Police Boss Adamson Bungei said they are working to eradicate gambling and fake promotions on city streets. He further said that those who are willing to share their details will be taken back home, and those who are not willing to share their details or don't have parents will be rehabilitated. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Past the 8 o'clock hour, and it is completely jam-packed wherever you're going to look at it today. In and outbound on Mombasa Road, moving along very slowly. The Thika Superhighway is one for the books today. Coming out past a survey. And also at Kiambu Road, very, very tight here. Getting into the CBD also is no mean feat this morning. We're also looking at traffic that has piled up on Langata Road, and we're also seeing it piling up on Ngong Road as well. Going out towards community is also quite tight. We're seeing traffic in industrial areas something today. Jogo Road actually behaving quite well today, except until you get to the junction, spilling over onto Landis and then out towards the Kamkunji roundabout. So that's what it looks like right now. Still hot and heavy in most parts, coming out of Westlands as well. The bypass is looking pretty good, except for that outer ring tickle there. We'll keep looking at things this morning. Let us know if you get stuck somewhere or something we should know about on our roads this morning. We'll take a look into Kisumu later, but it looks like to be flowing all right this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
8 minutes after 8. A very good morning to you wherever you tuned in. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. We've been here since 6 a.m. We're here until 10 a.m. We are now live on KTN Home, in addition to being live on SpiceFM around the country, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri and Malindi, and broadcasting to the world on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, www.spicefm.co.ke. Very many people watching the live stream from all over the world: Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, South Africa, Australia. Where else did we see today?
Jamaica,
Antigua, all those places. We are glad that you're tuned in wherever you are. C.T. Muga, today's proverb.
No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs.
No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs. Okay. The origin of this proverb?
Kenya.
It's a Kenyan proverb.
Yes, nchi yetu ni nchi ajabu. A country of wonders. I would add a country of ever increasing and befuddling wonders.
Yeah.
Yes.
But still, it does not matter.
No, it is still a wonderful country.
Okay. From the previous conversation we were having about electricity bills and all bills from everything else, Okechaoka says, it's not about consumer education, folks. It's about excessive taxation by the government. For every purchase of electricity, the government eats 50%. He used the word eats. Half of what you're paying in electricity
is eaten.
Is being gobbled up by your government. And it's for that reason that now we have people talking about the rising cost of fuel. All right? Members of Parliament have been speaking over the weekend, and everywhere they went, church, whatever, they were just talking about this is, the government needs to do something about this. We cannot continue living like this. It is immoral. It's wrong. Speaker of the National Assembly joined some 2 or 3 legislators for a function in Embu yesterday.
Yes.
They all stood up to speak. You know, order of hierarchy, comes and speaks last. Said, come on, guys.
Stop it.
Stop it. Parliament is the one that passes these bills. You members, you pass this. I am your speaker. Bill comes, you vote yes. Now, you can't come back here and say government should do something, government should do the other.
Who is government?
You should be going back to Parliament and making amendments because you have the power to make the corrections. No one's coming and say at you, serikali imenyanyasa wananchi.
You know, when the statement is made that these things are immoral, these things are uncouth, they are couthless, whatever it is, they do have a point. It's just that they're pointing in the wrong direction. It is them who are immoral. How on earth do you have the gumption to stand up before people and talk about something that you saw participate in legislating or bringing to pass, and then you speak as though it has arrived at your doorstep this morning and you are as surprised as everybody else? What sort of utter madness is this? And shamelessly, this one, unfortunately, the Mwananchi doesn't have a say except to pitch a fit and point fingers and say, you know, guys, you are the ones who have brought this on us. This thing could have been halted. Now, when people talk about the courts being a bottleneck, all right, this matter, some citizen decided we have the courts, we have the law. Let's get an adjudicator to decide for us whether these people are within their rights to actually do what they've done. And the court so far said, no, folks, these things are unconstitutional. There are certain things they can't do. Now, you tell me, why do I bring in the issue of taxation and this? It's all the same thing. At the end of the day, you are actually being taxed.
Yep.
You may think power has gone up, this has gone up. You're being taxed. So the declaration by Justice Odunga points to the unconstitutionality of this very thinking of government, saying, guys, sorry, this can't work. This actually cannot work.
Members of Parliament went to Parliament and they passed amendments to the Income Tax Act. Okay?
They did.
And with those amendments, a new tax was introduced, and it was called the minimum tax in Section 12D of the Income Tax Act by members of Parliament. This is what basically was saying that every entity will pay a minimum tax, whether you're making loss or income, whether you're making, you're declaring income or not, you will pay some tax. And the justification that's coming from the tax authorities is, there are very many companies that At the end of every financial year, their financial year, they just say we made a loss. And so they do not pay anything in terms of income tax as required by law. Now, we can see this company is still in operation. This company is still a going concern. This company has basically made, from their own paper, their own documentation, this company has actually done some business. Now, we are saying that as long as you've done some business, there's some revenue that's coming, you shall pay a percentage of that. Either that or you pay the income tax, whichever works. Members of Parliament will tell you that they even went through public participation and they did not get any objections to this. It was passed.
That they did not make any objections.
Yes.
Right.
Various concerned citizens, from Association of Manufacturers to the Institute of Public Accountants of Kenya, Certified Public Accountants, to businesses, went to court differently, separately, and it was all consolidated into one case. And this is what Justice Odunga was ruling yesterday. And he said, look. This amendment was clearly going to lead to favorites and sacrificial victims. Those who were able to pay taxes from their profits will not have their capital affected, while those who are genuinely in a loss-making position will be sacrificed at the altar of those who are dishonestly concealing their profits. And he said, this is wrong. This is not the way to go. This is unconstitutional. It is unjust, it's unfair. Our members of parliament had not once raised this issue.
When they say public participation, is it not that same public that has taken this matter to court?
Yes.
Indeed.
And the participation excluded them or included them, or at that point they agreed and then later on decided to change their minds? Saying
basically what you're asking is, did these organizations go to Parliament, present their petition against this amendment?
Yes.
And Parliament noted it but voted against
regardless.
it?
Yes. Because when people go to court, it means other avenues have been pursued and they have borne no fruits. They figure, something, let's go to somebody who can adjudicate on this matter, somebody who we consider to be neutral, and they go there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the private sector are very big on conversations. By the time you see them trooping to court, they figured this one isn't going to move very soon. Why don't we just take this matter to court? Yes. Because there are matters that can be resolved. I assume that when laws are passed, and the reason why public participation is a fulcrum on which we make certain decisions, is because with public participation, you would be able to get the perspective of the experts, the people who actually pay these taxes, and people who are supposed to be, who will inevitably be affected by these taxes. So when they had their public participation, which sector, which groups of the public did they participate this thing with?
I dare say that they're aware of the thing that you've just said, that when public participation then happens, is that you bring in a myriad of people then who are going to come and lend their voice, whether it's from a point of knowledge or opinion or something else.
Yes.
And they're aware that this is what would happen. And because in most cases it would appear as though the decision is already predetermined, that you already know in which direction that you're going to vote. So then public participation merely comes in as a tick-the-box exercise. So you know that these individuals will come in, and so you're not really listening to what they have to say. You are hearing them, but you're not internalizing it because you already know where you want to make the decision. Now, if public participation is to be carried out in the manner in which it was initially intended to, a lot of these issues that we are dealing with now, we wouldn't be. That you say, all right, at the time when members of parliament, the legislature essentially was making a decision and included matters of public participation, included other opinions, including expert advice, that these things were taken into consideration, the assumption is that maybe they would have made a decision differently. But then you want to probably believe that a parliament that then has been held handicapped is what is making these decisions. That is the only direction in which your mind would go. That clearly it is somebody else who's pulling the strings, and that is why said decision was made, and not necessarily because folks were thinking on their feet. And that's the unfortunate thing in this case, that maybe they were not thinking in a particular direction, inviting public participation without the need to necessarily make a decision based on what this participation would arrive at.
Yep.
And that's what we're looking at here.
What does public participation necessarily mean? Does it mean that you must consider, well, if many people come and they are giving varied opinions, which one do you go with? Yeah. Which one do you go with?
I think what it means is that you take everything into consideration.
And then?
Right. And then you make a decision based on that. But it would appear as though decisions are made regardless.
They're predetermined.
Yes, regardless of whether public participation was involved or not. Because the things that members of parliament are crying about today, it didn't need rocket science to figure out that was going to be the result of the decision that you made.
You know, you have public participation, and then they go ahead and do what they want to do.
This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
This is as though it was predetermined. You're going to make a decision anyway, so whether these people come or not, it doesn't matter. You could even fill out on a piece of paper that we had 4,000 people show up and tell us this, that, the other thing, but that you already made a decision. You made a decision in spite of. It doesn't matter. But then you reserve the right to come and cry about it later with everybody else who is said to have participated in this public outcry.
Bringing it up again. Let's bring in our guest who's in the studio now. Former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Farah Maalim. Good to have you in the studio again. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
This is the hot seat, and now we have a DJ's deck right in front of you. So at the end of this, you'll do one or two mixes.
Spin a few tunes.
Yes. Mheshimiwa Maalim, it's good to have you in the studio again.
Thank you.
We've asked you to join us to so we can have this conversation. You have experience as a member of parliament, and you have experience as a leader in the parliament, as a former deputy speaker. When we see the members of parliament today speaking as loudly as they are speaking about the rising cost of living, because fuel prices have gone up, and then we are going to have, excise duty also going up, and that will take the fuel prices even higher up. From where you sit, do you feel as if they are genuine in their concerns and their complaints? Or are they also really shocked? Or are they just shedding crocodile tears?
There are a number of ministries that they do their own regulations, what you call subsidiary legislations, without necessarily having to come back to the plenary of the parliament. And Treasury is one of them. The other one is Ministry of Health, which can come up with all drafts of what you call subsidiary legislation, which is law by day, without necessarily going back to parliament to get that green light. So for taxes purposes, the Treasury has that what you call leeway. But be that as it may, as the law is there, and they have that free hand. What normally happens, and I'm talking about so-called public participation. I heard you initially talk about public participation. Public participation is now provided for in our legislative system process, and for that to happen, the quantum or the level of public participation is directly proportional to the amount of civil society activities that's there and the role that's played by the media. You see what I mean? Those two roles. It has to be permanently in the psyche of the people and the masses for them to pick up this and say, there is this legislation coming up, so that outcries are there, demonstrations are there, participations are there, and the media is there. The media is there, having taken a full, cognizance of that right from the beginning. Now, the NGO fraternity, the non-governmental organization fraternity, will only go for what is, at that time, a bit explosive. They go for sensational things. The media goes for sensational things. So there's a failure both on the part of the media. As it's done, we do not have to reinvent the wheel again. This happens globally. Whenever a new legislation is coming up, you have a duty and responsibility to get in touch with the best experts in every area, put in your own media dimension into these things, and bring out the multifaceted dimensions to what is likely going to be the end result. And that also has got to happen with the, what do you call, the civil society. Now, that doesn't happen. there is very little knowledge. There is very little narratives that comes out into at that initial stage. But later on, when it becomes, now is the crunch, and people are feeling in their own pockets, and the ordinary person is suffering. Politicians need the votes out there. This is an election year for information. Politicians need their votes. The media also wants to have these sensations, You have, front headlines.
So, Farah, are you saying essentially that
it's a failure on many areas?
Okay.
It's not a failure that you can only put on the door of just one out of the many.
But allow me to put it on the door of members of parliament, at least for a few moments right now. Then we can open this up just a little bit, Farah. So we hear the speaker yesterday even saying at this point, look here, Kenyans are crying. We cannot have members of parliament crying as well, because you had an opportunity to change the course of things and you didn't. So at that point, what would your thinking be, whereby you were sitting in debate and you had an opportunity to change the course, or at least motion the course of things in a particular direction, and you did not? Why does that happen?
You see, like I told you from the beginning, I want you to internalize this and understand it. Let's be on the same page. There are certain ministries, certain areas in which you don't have to come back to parliament. You have the powers to create some of those legislative, subsidiary legislation, including raising taxes. Raising taxes. So Parliament can only react to it right now because the minister has raised certain taxes. Now, what Parliament can do, in as far as, basically, there's a process for Parliament to follow if they want to shut it down.
Let's be specific.
Let me just
so that we're on the same page, Farah. We are talking about the rise in fuel prices.
Yes.
The components in the fuel price include VAT.
Yes.
Include excise duty.
Yes.
Include now the others, the levies.
Yes.
Levies, the National Treasury could adjust. VAT, excise duty, they will not adjust.
They have been there from
They have not adjusted.
Yes.
These were passed in Parliament.
Yes.
So there's nothing. Yeah?
When were they passed in Parliament?
VAT duty, rising of VAT by 8%.
Yes.
In the previous Parliament.
Absolutely.
Right? Not in the previous Parliament. In a couple of years.
No, in this current Parliament.
In this current Parliament,
yes,
but the previous year.
Yes.
Excise duty was also passed in Parliament.
Yeah.
What was passed in Parliament has not been increased by Kuriatani. It is what was passed in Parliament.
Yes.
So the issue of saying that the current issue today with the rising fuel prices is a matter of the subsidiary legislation by a ministry that has power does not arise here. Because
why is
the
it
fuel
more
has gone
expensive
up
today than it was 2 years ago, 1 year ago? Why was there no an outcry 1 year ago? Because you say the 8% raise on that, which is, in my opinion, unforgivable for members of parliament.
Yes.
Unforgivable.
Yes.
It never happens anywhere else in the world. You don't have a place where there is 24%, what do you call VAT, 16 plus raising it by 8% again. But be that as it may, why is there outcry now?
The percentage of tax, taxes and levies on fuel has been the same.
Yes.
With the introduction of VAT, it went. It has been the same since the introduction of VAT.
Yes, but the prices of...
The landed cost is what has been fluctuating.
Why? This is the question you have to answer.
Now, those are the questions that we can ask elsewhere.
We have a regulatory, we have an energy regulatory, what do you call, a commission.
Yes. And the landed cost is a market factor.
Not quite.
It is a market factor, Farah, because the landed cost here is determined by who has bid. Market players are bidding on who is going to bring fuel for the market.
Yes.
And it's open tender.
Yes.
So all the players in the oil marketing industry know how much fuel is going to cost.
Yes. Landed here.
And this is based on market and competition.
Yes.
It's sort of, we can just say, a free market.
Yes.
The issue here is the 58 bob that is going to
government.
for every liter of fuel,
to
58
government.
shillings going to government. Members of parliament
Yes.
will complain about everything else
Yes.
and forget they passed excise duty.
Yes.
They passed VAT.
Yes.
They still have a responsibility to question on these other small levies.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that because Ukuriatani has brought in a levy, members of parliament cannot question that. They can't question that.
You're right. You're right. That can
So
be questioned,
now we
yes.
are on the same page.
Yes, now is when they have the capacity or the possibility of questioning. But for Ukuriatani to put this levy, he does not have to seek their approval.
Yes.
As a subsidiary legislation.
Yes.
You get
But
my
it's
point?
not new. That's what my point
It's not
is.
new. Let
because it's not
me
new,
explain to you.
They could have raised it last
Yes,
month.
yes, yes.
The month before.
Yeah.
They have never raised it. It's
Yes.
been there.
Yes.
Now is the time they wake up and suddenly realize that there's a railway levy.
All those levies are there. All those levies are there, and Parliament has a responsibility right now to interrogate that, and basically to bring the government to task. But having said that, you have to look at the bigger picture, the overall bigger picture.
Okay.
This country has borrowed massive amounts of money, which cannot be shown on the ground. Infrastructure is there, massive infrastructure is there. We have to respect that. But at what cost? From an overall debt of $17 billion US, today we are talking about $90 billion US in a short 8 years, 8.5 years, maybe less than 9 years. And for information, that now the extent to which this had to be mitigated by Parliament, I agree with you. When Parliament was told to go to raise the debt ceiling, it should have been more responsive. You don't allow the government to come up with a figure and you raise it overnight with over 100%, over 200% to what it was originally. And this is not the end of the road. That 9 trillion, government is borrowing today at the rate of 3.3 billion. It was in the media.
Yeah.
3.3 billion. That amounts to about $100 million a month.
Yeah.
Sorry, 100 billion Kenya
100
shillings
billion.
is the $1 billion.
Yeah.
Is $1 billion a month. If we only are short of that figure, the ceiling, reaching the ceiling, which the government does not have to go back to Parliament. It can continue borrowing until it reaches the ceiling of 9 trillion.
Yeah.
We're reaching that in about 2 months' time, I think, if not less.
Before the middle of this financial year. Let's take a break at this point.
The government still has got to go back to Parliament again to seek that.
An extension.
No, raising further
raise
the ceiling.
Yeah.
And you can bet
It'll happen.
it will happen.
So the question that we're asking, and that's a conversation that we're having this morning, is the legislature accountable to Kenyans? And that's the question we're asking. Our guest this morning is former Speaker of the National Assembly, Farah Maalim. We're live on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and online. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And I mean, you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Social media was on fire.
Yes.
Every 5 or so minutes, some motorbike guy would come in, put his 20 bob plane, take off again. So I decided, let me put my 20 bob also and see. And I put 20 bob. It came. This is a dusty little village, and I'm thinking, there's a lot of machines in this place.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with Spice FM.
Nairobi at 17, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 13 today. Nakuru is partly sunny at 17, highs of 26 and lows of 13. Nyeri is cloudy at 16, highs of 23. It'll come down to lows of 14. In Mombasa this morning, it'll be a wet morning in some parts. Cloudy conditions later, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Malindi, raining in some parts as well at 27, highs of 29 and lows of 25. Kisumu is looking sunny for most parts of today at 22. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 19. Kakamega, sunny at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Eldoret is sunny at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Out into Kampala, it's mostly sunny at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Joburg, sunny at 12, highs of 25. We'll see lows of 18. And Lagos, raining now, 26, highs of 29 and lows of 25. And Kinshasa, skies are hazy at 25. It'll go to highs of 34 and lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
All right, so what are we looking at here? Coming out of Westlands, quite a thick one here. Use the Red Hill Link Road. There's an option for you to get out and then back into the city if that's where you're heading. So we're looking at the entire city centre completely packed. Aerodrome Road, then feeding off to the Bunyala Road roundabout. Coming out from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout is absolutely packed as well. Gong Road is a thing as well. And we're looking at Bagavi Way being able to help some folks get past that Langata Road sticky situation this morning. All right, coming out of State House Road, Kileleshwa, that entire area going towards Lavington, jam-packed. Thika Superhighway looks worse now. Going all the way back past the Mathare area. Kiambu Road also feeding off onto the Thika Superhighway, jam-packed. We are in the hour. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 9 o'clock, Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. This is a situation room. The conversation is the legislature accountable to Kenyans? Is it answerable to Kenyans? Are they aware of what Kenyans are feeling? And our guest is the former Deputy Speaker, Farah Maalim. He understands the thinking of parliamentarians. He understands the leadership, and he understands the thinking of government as a whole. And that's why we are having the conversation with him, CT.
You know, there's a perspective that Mheshimiwa brought in when he actually was responding to what he had been asked. And I was thinking of the import of responsibility that we in the media bear in such situations, what civil society and the role that they play and the responsibility that they bear, and then Parliament. And as we were talking, I was thinking of how it is that even those of us in the media very quickly join what I'm referring to as a national tradition, kicking the can down the road. It is Parliament, it is this. You go to civil society, it is Parliament, it is the media. You go to Parliament, it is
the
this.
Government.
Yes, exactly, it is the government. And yet, each of these entities have very, very distinct roles. And each of these entities have the capacity to hold each and every of these institutions to account. And yet, kicking the can down the road doesn't hold anybody to account. All it begins a song. This one blames, then the other one responds by also blaming. And yet, when I look at this issue, where perhaps, now this is me, where I join this fray in pointing fingers at Parliament is this. It's unfortunate, but when a leader is elected to represent their people in that hallowed house, sometimes I think, yes, it is true, we may expect more than is humanly possible, but we have expectations. And those expectations are met when there is a record of them having put their foot down on an issue. Then we say, you know something, Parliament put their foot down on this one.
Surely they can
yes,
do it again.
we recall. And they said no. They returned this one and said, we're not going to deal with this. Or, as you say, those subsidiary legislations, when it came to their attention, they said, excuse me, we need to have a debate about this, and we have the power to throw this thing out. Now, when you see such things happening, then it becomes difficult to point a finger. But in the absence of it, the finger pointing becomes a popular sport.
Yeah, indeed. In every of those institutions, I must admit, I have been in and out of Parliament for about 30 years now. There is the lack of depth. The lack of depth in all that. In the media, massive lack of depth. Parliament, as it is right now, people come from every sector. One was a teacher, one was an engineer, one was a lawyer. Very rarely you get lawyers in there. One was a media person. They are from all over. And people come in euphorias. For example, I don't know more than 90% of the members of Parliament today. I'm serious. Because there is nothing. We remember the times, even when I was a young man, you would still know everybody in Parliament.
Yep.
And we only had the Daily Nation, the Standard,
and the
no any
radio.
other paper, and the radio.
Yep.
And the radio. Even the TV didn't. The TV was a government on, so it didn't say much. But then, as secondary school students in the 70s, we will rush immediately into the page of Parliament to listen to what the likes of Shekuku, Anyona, Onyonka. Anyona was much later. I was already an adult.
Yes.
But the early days, there were those people who were there and literally doing a good job. Plus the cabinet ministers who were there. Caliph, there was a guy who was called Caliph, who was an assistant minister. The late, what do you call, Serenay. The late Muthui, Chelagat Muthui,
Yes.
and all those people. But today, we were able to follow some of these things as young as in Form 1, even in Standard 7. The first thing that I was in a boarding school, national boarding school, in the morning is the radio is on. We used to have those small transistors, and what they Jana Bungeni, something like that. And then you listen to that.
So there was depth.
There was depth.
Depth of debate.
There was
depth of
interrogation. Interrogation at L levels. When somebody says, and then people used to write to the media. And Kalastos Juma, the renowned late scientist, and I was really, really saddened by his death. I knew him when he had left his A levels, and was a contributor to the media, contributor to the nation, the ordinary articles to the nation, and he made a lot of sense.
So how did that?
And somebody picked him out and gave him what they call a scholarship outside, progressively until he became the renowned professor of environment. Is it?
Yes.
And these were the kind of things that we had. Today, that's not there.
So
the media is not there. The media is sensation. Oh, you say this and this, so and so say that. He says, you say, she say, and nothing much more than that.
So here we are asking you today
Yes.
that the depth. Okay, of course I'm going to camp here.
Absolutely.
The depth that is missing from Parliament now, from what you're saying, has become shallow. A shallow understanding of what ought to be done in terms of legislation. A shallow understanding in terms of what needs to happen for representation. A shallow understanding and practice of what needs to be happening for oversight.
Absolutely.
So then begs a very maybe simple question, is that why then do we have a legislature in place who does not understand what is supposed to be happening?
I agree with you. Let me tell you one thing. Everybody who has to have the mandate of another body to maintain the relevance is playing to that body for approval. A member of parliament is playing to the constituents for approval. A government is playing to those members of parliament for approval, because members of parliament can bring down a government. Uhuru's government and Ruto's government today, if parliament decides to send them home, they can send them home. And then above all, there is the media and the scholarly constituency. Since when did you see some of these very powerful debates that you see in the rest of the world on issues being undertaken, family and owned by scholars who are authorities on their different fields and who are literally asking questions and telling the country we are wrong. You are depending on a government or a legislature that is unable to deliver. But these are the issues. What are the kind of scholars we have in the country? 90% of them are hired guns for anybody who has the capacity to pay. I'm telling you.
Let me ask this question.
And let me just finish this bit.
Please go ahead, Mheshimiwa.
The other are hell-bent on very parochial, ethnic, and other constituencies where they will support. For example, without the many, many intellectuals, brilliant intellectuals, people of substance from the mountain region, who will not come out and castigate what the government of Uhuru is doing. Similarly, you have a similar situation in Kalenjin Rift Valley. You get my point.
Similar situation in Luo Nyanza.
Luo Nyanza is a religion, basically, literally a religion.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't want to mention names, but some of my brilliant friends and who are legal scholars.
They're quiet.
Of course,
They're
they can
silent.
only support Raila. They cannot do anything else. And so you see, genuine, honest, patriotic, scholarly outputs and inputs are not there. It's all parochial.
What is the cause of this?
I want to tell you. Look at, for example, the who is who in the people who are trying to put something together for William Ruto. Many of them we were together in NASA. My good old friend, and I'm unable even to live with it. And it still remains a very close friend of mine, David Ndii. Where's David Ndii now?
He's in the Hustler Nation.
He's in the Hustler Nation.
Is he? Is he?
And I hear many others.
speaks
I don't
strongly
want,
about
I don't want
Hustler
to mention other names, but there are many, many other people who are authorities in their own rights, who are professors, who you'll be told are in this camp or that camp. So that genuine, patriotic, non-partisan, only partisan to substance. You cannot be wholly non-partisan. You must be partial to substance and partisan to substance.
So has the legislature been held?
Not there. And then you have a legislature that, I told you, 95% of them, actually 90% is an overstatement. Over 95% of them, I don't even know them by names.
So has the legislature then been held captive by personal ambition as opposed to people representation?
Yeah, you don't plant maize and expect to harvest beans.
So is that a yes?
What did we do as masses? And then, look, the blame does not end there. The blame goes to the masses. How do the masses end up electing their representatives?
Actually, we've had this debate, Mheshimiwa.
It says, let me just finish one bit.
Yes.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked, and rotten society like we have in Kenya, I'm sorry to say this, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
Mheshimiwa.
At the end of the day, look at the number of graduates, look at the number of people who have substance who just come in to support somebody, and you know, with the media these days and the social media and everything else. Look at those guys. All those guys have got degrees. These young people have degrees. But they don't care about substance. They don't care. It's not like the early days ourselves when you were even in secondary school, in upper secondary school, you would read about Mao Zedong, you read about Chu Enlai, Lim Piao, Stalin, you read the works of what you call Karl Marx and the rest of it. And you think you can bring a solution to Africa.
Strong leaders and characters.
Strong political convictions and social convictions.
And then has been meaning to ask you a question for a while. He's itching with this.
I'm sorry.
I'm listening because the sort of fodder literature that Mheshimiwa read is the same fodder I read. I'm surprised he didn't mention Frantz Fanon, the wretched of the earth.
The wretched of the earth, yeah.
That was fundamental reading.
Rodney.
Yes, exactly.
Walter Rodney.
Fundamental reading. Now, Mheshimiwa here was one of the most outspoken individuals in his time about the marginalization of the Somali community. He has spoken about it, and I'm certain in the process of speaking, he has been called many names, okay, and has been labeled as such. When I used to read about him, I took it that this is a man who actually takes his job seriously.
Thank you.
He has been elected, and he's saying, no. I represent people, and I must say what I know and what I see. Now, the unfortunate thing is this. It's a question that is difficult to answer, but yet it must be asked. What happened to the current leaders? Now, the debate about public leaders, who's to blame, leave blame aside. You cannot run away from the power of influence and leadership.
Absolutely.
And MPs represent a body of people who cannot be referred to anything other than leaders. Now, many of them don't live up to the mark and to the title and to the name of leader.
But they enjoy the perks.
But yes, and actually they are. And unfortunately, many people see them as such. In Mheshimiwa's time, being a member of parliament was not a get-rich-quick scheme. In fact, the salary was paltry.
It wasn't.
10,000 when I first
No,
came
it
into
wasn't.
Parliament.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. They didn't earn much money. In fact, Waheshimiwa were servants of the people almost literally. Now, we have a parliament that is actually well-to-do. These fellows have a good time. They have this perk, under that perk, under the other perk, under this perk. And how has that come about? So,
when I came first into Parliament, the salary was 10,000 shillings. The allowances, when you add them cumulatively,
This was 92.
92, December 92, so effectively 93. When you put all the allowances together, the sitting allowance, it was 39,000 shillings. Right. And coming from the farthest end, the mileage was 8,000 per week.
Okay.
So it's about 32,000 plus 39,000. So 71,000 is all that a member of parliament from the farthest end would make. The ones from around here were making nothing other than the 39,000 shillings, so probably another 2,000-3,000. You see, because 8,000 for the mileage from here all the way to Lagdera is almost 1,000 kilometers, was 8,000.
and the road network was horrible.
The whole
almost
road network
almost
was
non-existent.
horrible. And let me tell you one thing. Very few of us had cars, and those ones who came from business. And many of them were very old jalopies, small pickups, small things that sometimes you'll have to call a mechanic into Parliament grounds there to repair for you.
Sort it out. By the time
Repair
you were
for
leaving
you.
Parliament,
Yes.
you left in the 9th Parliament? Or was it the
No,
8th?
in the
The
10th.
8th.
I was there in the 10th,
in the
yeah.
10th Parliament.
Yes.
So by the time you were leaving, what was the salary of a member of Parliament?
Oh my God. Salary and allowances were... The allowances, the ones who don't go far, would earn 360,000 those days, I remember.
Yeah.
As a standard amount that they were getting per week.
Okay.
Sorry. Per month.
Per month.
That comes to about 100,000 things. It has since increased. Those ones who are coming from far, distant, like ourselves.
Yeah.
At that time, I was making about 600,000 only in mileage.
On mileage claim was only.
Per month.
So it was during
And
your
the
generation.
salary was, when you put all that together, plus the deductions, an MP was making about... I was a deputy speaker, so mine was definitely higher than that, but about 700,000-800,000.
So the point here,
So on average,
during your generation in Parliament, the remuneration for members of Parliament had shot up tremendously in your years. All right. So we can say that during this time, members of Parliament got to increase their salary significantly. Members of Parliament also got to
the independence
make sure
of Parliament.
they brought in the independence of Parliament.
The most important thing was the independence of Parliament.
Delinking your calendar from that of the executive.
Before we were part of the office of the president.
Yes.
Salaries were paid from there. Staff were
there was a parliamentary service commission. All these things had happened.
Yes.
That shows me that there was, if we look at the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the first decade of the 2000s, that parliament,
exponentially.
That shows that there was a lot of understanding of the job of parliamentarians. That's just 2 parliaments ago.
Yes.
So we can't really say that this parliament, 7 years later, can have lost understanding of the job of parliamentarians.
Actually, they have.
To begin with, let me explain to you.
I think they understand the job more. It's just that they choose not to do the job, probably.
Let me explain to you one thing you need to know. Not less than 60% of the members of parliament were not elected by the people.
Why do you say this?
They were rigged. There were no elections in the Eastern Province. And I know of many other places where the popular choices of the people never made it. Never made it. So one thing is you have people who have come in through the back door. And there's a lot of rigging. There's hell of a lot of rigging.
Mheshimiwa.
And the standard procedure was, you can do what you want, you can vote for whoever you want, but I will, like in my case, they used to say that we will cross the bridge with the nomination certificate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wewe fanya vile unataka Farah, get all that.
But who has the
You'll
certificate
defeat
is
me.
what matters.
Yeah, like in mimi nitakuwa na certificate. And it happened. It happened a number of times. It happened many times to me. So the problem we have is, to begin with, one is that people who were selected.
So they're not accountable to the people. The people did not pick them, choose them anyway.
They don't care.
So who are they accountable
And all they
to?
care about now is actually worse right now, because they've come out. They've come into parliament. The country has a very interesting tradition. 85%, 90% of them don't come back again.
Mm-hmm.
And very few people would not come back and then come back at that time, or come back a fourth time, or come back other times. Usually those are the ones who had been rigged out initially. So the people are still, they're close to the people. You get my point? So they know that they're not coming back. So it's like, make hay while the sun shines. So then they will steal the CDF. There's always a certain amount of money, which is a constituency-based one, is Kera, I think, and give problem to those authorities to make sure that they give it to their own brothers and cousins and the rest of them, so that cronies, it comes back to them again. And basically, they are there also all the time, whatever nation they want to call themselves. Call them Hasra Nation or Keleweki or everything. Yeah, again, going back and making money from those people who are, you know what I mean. And that's because
Mheshimiwa,
you ask yourself one question: how does somebody who did not have nothing have the capacity to bankroll things in the billions? You see what I mean? And then, is it rocket science? You say it's rocket science to understand that this money was stolen.
Mheshimiwa, there's something that has to be asked here. You see, whenever we point fingers at Parliament, it is not without reason or without evidence.
I know.
We don't focus on their lifestyles or on what they purportedly make. We focus on what we consider to be their function.
Yeah.
See, like now, what has brought about this debate are these rising costs that are born out of taxes. And you're thinking, but we have a budget-making Parliament, for heaven's sake. An independent institution. You know, there's something that Mheshimiwa said that actually has opened my eyes. If there is evidence to support what he has said, that many of these people were not elected, then indeed it explains many things, because they have no business listening to what the
money. They
money.
know they're not coming back, because over 90% of them don't come back.
They know they're not coming back.
Yes.
So this motion is going to Parliament today. There's a notice of motion to discuss this rising cost of fuel and rising cost of living. What impact is that likely to have? It's a motion.
Well, it's a private member's motion.
Yep.
It's not a bill. It's not a motion of censure. You see what I mean?
Yep.
It's a private member's motion is just a debate. The way you have
a proposal.
debate.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation. It's a conversation.
Even if it's bearing any fruit.
Yes. Yeah. Even if you have the motion saying A, B, C, D, the government must do this, and then you say as many of that say aye, and everybody says aye, it still has no.
Meaning once you say
no authority.
It is finished.
It has absolutely no authority.
It is not binding.
It's not
on
binding.
the executive to
Absolutely.
do anything about it.
Absolutely.
What would it take, for example? I mean, we're just looking at this now. You know, everybody's up in arms. There's this motion that's going before the House today. What would it take to get some kind of impact in something like this? Because the hope of the people, because I'm just going to go back there, the hope of the people often is that there would be a reversal, or there would be something that would kind of push in the direction of this being reversed. What would it take for such a thing to happen?
Well, under normal circumstances, your Parliament should be able to tell the executive, listen, reverse this immediately. You fail to do that. In a Westminster system, we will seek a motion of no confidence in the government.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Basically, use the tools at your disposal.
Absolutely.
To make the government...
If the government is insensitive.
To make the government do what it ought to do.
Yeah.
Let's take a break on KTN Home. The conversation continues on SpiceFM. Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, is with us in the House. He's a former MP. Initially, it was Lagdera, then that constituency now has a
Still like
different
that.
name.
No, it's split into two. I'm going for the DAB now.
For the DAB now,
Yes.
He wants to be the next MP for the DAB constituency.
Yes.
Okay. It continues on Spice FM. Thank you very much for tuning in on the Situation Room. I have a few things that I disagree with what you've said, Mheshimiwa, but let's discuss that in the next hour. In terms of whether our members of parliament really know what, or whether they've lost their depth of understanding the matters. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for tuning in.
This is the Situation Room.
No wonder you
the
So we're coming
only
to the
way
top
to
of the hour,
start your
and
day.
the conversation with Farah Maalim will continue. It's 94.4 in Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret. It's 90.9 in Nyeri and 97.7 in Malindi. As we continue with this, we'll also open up the phone lines at some point. The question we're asking, is the legislature accountable to Kenyans? Is the legislature accountable to Kenyans? How do we make it accountable to Kenyans? We'll be opening up the phone lines at around hour, 0719-012-600. But also you can share your comments and your thoughts on SpiceFM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter and Instagram. The legislatures are on a different league, my friend. That's what Eric Muthui is saying. Just ask them how much does the cost or is the cost of bread, and tell me whether you'll get a correct statement. Yes, that's one of those, the basic measure of whether somebody is living with you. Ask them bei ya unga.
Basic cost.
Yeah, basic. Good morning, it's now 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Rift Valley Regional Coordinator George Natembeya has visited Turkana County to inspect ongoing road projects in the county, especially the A1 highway linking Kenya to South Sudan, funded by the World Bank. Natembeya pointed out that the contractors who were awarded the tender were almost completing their projects, adding that the process of compensating those affected by the projects was also underway.
Hizi contracts zote zinaendelea vizuri. We don't have any challenges. Contractors wale wanatakana kuwa on site, wako on site na wanafanya kazi. Malipo imefanyika vizuri. Kama kulikuwa na issues kidogo za labor relations pia zimekuwa sorted out. Mambo ya compensation wale watu ambao walikuwa affected na miradi pia inaendelea vizuri. Kwa sasa hatuna utata wote katika hii barabara.
He added that the construction of the road itself had shortened the journey from Kitale to Turkana, considering that motorists used to take more than 5 hours to get to Lodwar.
Na ningependa pia kuchukua nafasi pia kushukuru serikali kwa sababu sasa kutoka Kitale kuja hapa Lodwar, ile safari ilikuwa inachukua karibu siku mzima, masaa 12, inachukua less than 4 hours. Umekuwa hapa. Kwa hivyo uchukuzi kati ya Lodwar, South Sudan all the way kwenda mpaka Kitale mpaka Nairobi umepunguzwa sana. Pia hata mambo ya business na watu wetu kutembeleana itakuwa ni jambo ambalo ni rahisi.
Energy CS Charles Katera and EPRA officials are today afternoon expected to appear before the Senate Energy Committee to explain the reasons for the hiked fuel prices. Senators, among them Nandi Samson Cherege, filed a petition before the Senate asking the committee to question the two and other stakeholders in the energy sector, including the leadership of EPRA, before submitting a full statement to Parliament. He first asked the committee to explain why the government had suspended strategies to protect Kenyans against high fuel prices.
And I think Kenyans, we are being too complacent because anytime it is increased, Kenyans do nothing. We just complain, we come, we speak here in the House and nothing happens. There's a big problem in that ministry. We cannot be used to salvage a ministry which cannot perform.
Such is the matter that you invite the Committee of the Whole to sit through together with EPRA and the Ministry of Energy to come to the floor of this House and explain. Because, Mr. Speaker, when members of this House retreat to their constituencies this weekend, I can assure you, in every gathering that you will appear, people will want to lynch you because of the price that they are paying, even those who don't drive cars. You have heard that kerosene increased by a whooping 12 Kenya shillings.
Similar questions are expected to be raised in the National Assembly at a time when lawmakers will be returning to Parliament. Several MPs, including Matungulu, Stephen Mule, have already indicated that they'll focus on finding answers to these questions. Already, Dagoretti North MP Simba Arati has indicated that he'll table a motion to suspend the implementation of the VAT. Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muthui, had already called on MPs who are talking about the issue in public meetings to instead raise the issue in Parliament, where they are assured of making a difference.
Nataka kuuliza wabunge tafadhalini waache kuzungumzia huku sasa kwa mikutano Jumanne pale kwa chemba. Tuache sasa kwa sababu sasa wabunge hawezi kuja kuulia kama mwananchi pia analia.
Parents continue to trickle into University of Nairobi despite decrying high school fees. The parents say the fee is 3 times higher than what was paid in the previous years. This comes as UON students had issued a strike notice yesterday, urging first-year parents across all UON campuses in the country not to report for admission until the fee matter is resolved.
Sisi tulikuja tukijua the fee is affordable both for the academics and for the hostel, but unfortunately the fee is thrice what has been used to be paid here.
Mimi nilikuwa nafikiri nalipa kwa semester moja ama mbili, singine naenda kutafuta. Juu niko na watoto wengine shule ma secondary school, high schools. Nalipa kidogo kidogo, ikifika mwisho wa mwaka nipate nimeshamaliza hiyo pesa yote mtoto afanye mtihani.
However, Vice Chancellor Stephen Kiama says the increased fees are aimed at creating better services and will only affect new students. He said the payments can be made in installments, urging parents not to be under too much pressure.
As also ensure that those students get the laboratory materials they need to be taught. They need good accommodation where they sleep. And to do that, you need, therefore, the financial resources to be able to cover for those costs. We don't want anybody to miss education at the University of Nairobi. So we will support them, even if it means giving them some work in what we call work-study program, to ensure that they can do some work and earn a little money to pay. And then also others will provide for them that they can pay in installments based on their ability to pay. So we have put all these mechanisms in place.
And in business, consumer prices of sugar have risen by up to 30% as several factories grappled with production hitches due to the breakdown of machines and shutdowns for routine maintenance. A 2-kilogram packet of the sweetener, which retailed at 200 shillings as late as August, has hit 230 in retail shops, a level that last witnessed in January last year. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, still continues inbound on Mombasa Road today. That Airport North area, a little bit better now. Outer Ring, though, there's a little bit of traffic there heading in the direction of the city. Industrial area, quite packed, Lunga, and then feeding off to the Likoni interchange on Mombasa Road today, heading towards the southern bypass. Not looking too bad, but we have a load of traffic there. Makadara out past on Jogo Road and going towards the City Stadium roundabout, snaking along there as you get towards Landis Road, but that Kamkunji spot still seems to be quite sticky right now. All right, Uhuru Highway, and this is after the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, all the way through to Westlands, in and outbound is still heavy as it is on Langata Road into Westlands. Still a thing. The Red Hill Link Road, guys, I know it's further, but it'll help in this situation as opposed to sticking there. All right, shall we take a look in a short while again? The situation on the Thika Super Highway is looking better. Patience pays. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text there on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
7 after
the
9.
only
Good
way
morning.
to start
How
your
are you
day.
doing? Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Is Parliament accountable to Kenyans? It's a conversation we're having with Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. He wants to be the next MP for Dadaab constituency. City, today's proverb.
No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs.
No matter how much the world changes, cats will never lay eggs.
No.
That makes sense, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, that will never happen.
You can change all the things, but there are things that will remain constant. Yeah. I was saying, I listened to you and you said you are looking at, for example, as you were growing up as a young man in the 70s and the kind of depth that you're seeing coming out of Parliament, being reported of proceedings of Parliament. And then you joined Parliament and you saw the kind of vibrancy that the Parliament had at the point. And then you're comparing all that to the current Parliament.
Absolutely.
And you feel that this Parliament has lost depth.
Completely. I mean, I was in the 7th Parliament, one of the youngest in the 7th Parliament. I think it was only Malcolm Maore who was younger than me. And regardless of, at that time was the first substantive multi-party parliament since the original one, the Kadu when they crossed the floor. The divide, the tension, the stress, the war that's there between Kanu and the opposition was in the air all over. I mean, you can feel it wherever you go. Even then, we had such a quality of people in Parliament that time that one of the diehard Kanu members, when he stands up to talk, there are people, we would listen to them. It would be kind of a pin drop silence. The same also on the other side. I remember the late Onyonka, the Zachary Onyonka, massively gifted. Akumu, who was the trade unionist. Dennis Akumu. Our third president, Kibaki. As a young man, I remember one time I moved a motion, a private member's motion like this one. And the understanding initially was that I should be opposed. By the time I was through with the motion, Ntimama, who was a minister on the other side, asked me to allow him to second that motion. You can imagine a cabinet minister seconding a motion by a young member, a young, what do you call, opposition member of parliament in 1993. And I was actually seeking an affirmative action through quota system for the marginalized areas to be allowed for young men and women from those high schools or secondary schools to be allowed to make it to the university and tertiary colleges at a lower grade. I mean, affirmative action is there everywhere, practiced in the world.
And it made sense.
Yes. And Biwot was there. Sent Sunkule out to the rest of them and told them, we will support that motion by Farah. And it was unanimously supported by Parliament. In 1 year, we were able to take 550 students from those, what you call, marginal areas into institutions of higher learning, mainly medical training colleges and also the universities. So there were national interests that were able to cut across the petty divides between people. And then we had, of course, the likes of, on our side, in the opposition, we had Anyang Nyong'o, Professor Anyang Nyong'o. We had the late Oko Ambaka. Oko Ambaka. Yes. Professor Rashid Mzee. Paul Mite. We had number of people on our side. On the other side, there was the likes of the late Bonaya Godana, Dr. Bonaya Godana, who was the deputy speaker at that time, and Sagini, the late Sagini, who made a lot of sense whenever. Nyachai was there as a minister at that time also. So people who were either accomplished technocrat civil servants. Nyachai was a civil servant par excellence. There's a man who saw it all. So the national interest on many occasions was protected. And as a representative, you were a serious representative there.
It would supersede everything.
Yes. Martha Karua was on our side, you can imagine.
Yeah.
The literal Iron Lady. Even Charity Ngilu was there.
Yep.
And Ndetei, Agnes Ndetei, from DP, was heads and shoulders above many.
But even then, Farah, you'd still find there are matters where there'd be, crossover agreement on issues.
Absolutely.
And then there are those which were serious KANU State House positions.
Yes.
And those on KANU side, even though they could see sense, they would never vote yes.
Look,
because they knew
the areas,
on which side the bread was buttered.
Yes.
And they knew
if I agree with you.
If the person who's sitting in State House has basically determined this is the direction we're taking,
I agree with you.
It doesn't matter.
I agree with you. Jaramogi was there, by the way, in Parliament also with us for the first 2 years. I mean, he passed on in 94 for about a year and slightly over a year. And Wamalwa Kijana, I forgot Wamalwa Kijana. George Captain, the late George Captain. Kitui, Maurisa Kitui, as a young man, who was part of
so
the
they had
antics.
depth. Now,
there was a lot of depth.
My issue, though, is when we say that there was depth then and we lack depth now. And I'm at that point where I'm lost, because if I look at those leaders, if you just allow me, if I look at those leaders, yes, I can see their pedigree politically. And I can also see their pedigree in terms of their oratory skills and all.
Yes.
If I look at oratory skills, we still have that in Parliament today. If I look at the pedigree in terms of understanding, in terms of representing various professions, in this Parliament we have many. We've got accountants, we've got lawyers, we've got doctors, we have many. If you look at the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee is comprised of finance professionals, right? CPAs, same budget, same. If you look at all these committees, you'll find that there are people who will actually are subject matter experts on these things. So when then we say that they lack the depth, I'm at a loss. Because these are people
some of them are fundamental, I'll tell you. Some of them are seriously fundamental.
Okay.
Fundamental in the sense that we have a system right now which is different from our old system. Ours was a pure parliamentary system. Pure parliamentary system. So the government was domiciled inside Parliament. So you had issues with the Minister of Finance. You will put in a question by private notice, and the Minister of Finance will be there to be fried. That's my point. Any minister for internal security and provincial administration, internal security, every minister was there. Today, you have ministers who have authority but are not accountable to anybody. Nobody. Probably only they are appointing authority. And so the things were different. The system was also different. I agree with you. The system was different from the way we had it then. And the more urgent need now for us to bring back that government in Parliament.
Another contentious matter. But let's just look back at, for example, the current issue at hand. The current issue is rising cost of fuel. And everybody is in agreement that the tax and levy component of fuel is too high. And it's driving up the cost of everything else. The tax and levy component in the power bill is too high. It's driving up that cost as well. This Parliament, unlike the others, has the power to make budgets, has the power to determine how much tax goes into every element. Then why would we say that this Parliament has still allowed that to happen, but still come back and complain when they passed unanimously? Not unanimously, but they passed by a large majority to reintroduce VAT on fuel. When they passed the kind of taxation that we have, when they recently passed the budget, it's a 3 trillion shillings budget, and they can see the government is not going to be able to raise this kind of revenues to finance this budget. It's going to be a heavy deficit.
Will be hard pressed to raise half of that.
So it's not that I don't really agree that this Parliament lacks understanding of the matters. I just want to understand. So at what point then do they lose track of the reality?
You see, you've just mentioned all the gaps courtesy of the current parliament. And then you say that the parliament does not have any depth, the parliament does not have any commitment. You know what I mean? I mean, sorry, you did not say commitment. But you see.
It has depth.
It has depth. And why is it not raising these issues?
Depth is something demonstrable.
Yes.
It's not something that you stick on your forehead and say, I went to school and have depth. It's like going to school and claiming you're educated. Education, when you're educated, it's demonstrable. It's something you can demonstrate.
Who do you, as a member of parliament, for example, and you want to take, you are disappointed and dissatisfied with the way the government is running, who is the government that you're going to take to task? Because the person who is supposed to defend the ones you're talking about right now are the committee chairs in there, some of them committee members. They're supposed to defend the government outside.
Yep.
You see what I mean? We took in a system that essentially cannot work with us.
But is that the brief? Is that the brief really, Farah?
Yes.
That committee chairpersons represent the government.
Of course.
Should it be not?
They are the ones who respond to the questions by.
But they raise questions to the executive.
And the executive is not in parliament to come and answer those questions.
Yes.
So who answers the questions?
The person the committee is asking the question on behalf of the whole house.
They don't even have
the executive.
They don't even have a powerful clearance within the dynamics or the goings-on in the ministry that they represent. So they have to send the question to them. The ministry gives them an answer. Then they come back and present that answer that was given to them by the ministry. So are they the public servants?
And this is what is happening right now. Yes, so essentially you're saying that the all of these 300 plus don't have, number one, the standing, the power to be able to go, debate, represent the people, and then legislate on a matter without some quote unquote higher power coming in and telling them what to do. So
and the committee chairs are also enjoying very, very powerful packs, by the way.
So is the legislature in a state of capture?
Of course. I mean, that has been there from the time we changed the law and from the time we began disregarding the letter and the spirit of our own constitution. I mean, there's a serious state capture. You have an imperial president today. Powerful imperial presidency, because the deputy president actually exercised more of those powers than even the substantive president in the first 5 years. So, nothing, accountable to nobody. Bas. And then the same members of parliament who you think should be holding the executive accountable are the ones who are supposed to be chairs of those committees. And so they're working with the executive, with the presidency.
If my memory serves me right, during the time when you first got into parliament, our president was also a member of parliament.
He was not only then. It was on until Kibaki in the 10th parliament. Kibaki was a member of parliament. So when the official opening of the parliament, he comes in there.
But I still look back at even
the swearing in. We were sworn in with Kibaki at the same time. That's why Babu Namamba created all that drama, ruckus, you know,
with the Kibaki present in the house.
Yes.
But still looking at even
in
the
way budget,
that
when one of the budgets was being read, I can't remember which budget it was in the 7th Parliament. Moi was there. And we were fighting. Somebody wanted to take the mess. I was one of those guys who was, because the mess is basically a demonstration of the dignity of the house itself. It's not against an individual, because the government is not the mess. So and I remember there was an MP from Mpakasi. What was his name?
Mwenje.
No. Mwenje was there, but there's another one. Mwenje was
Mwenje was a better known one.
Mwenje was After Mwenje died, I think is when he. There was an MP, a young. Diminutive, not very, but I'll remember. Who wanted to pick that? But the good thing is that he was not very big. we could contain it there. But there were people basically shouting at the president and telling him no, and they were there. We were there. He was there he was accountable to the people also on the floor of the house. He was there.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
So essentially you're saying with this new system that we have lauded have said is wonderful, that very fact that it's a presidential system is partly responsible for...
Fully.
Oh, not partly, fully.
I'll tell you, short of creating a crisis, short of a motion of censure or a motion of confidence in the government, what else can they do? for example, to bring the government to task. They cannot censure a minister outside Parliament. You see what I mean? You can't censure a minister outside Parliament. It's immoral, because that minister is not there to defend himself or herself.
Yeah.
You can. What do you do?
You can move a motion of no confidence in the minister.
It's a government, by the way. It's a government. The minister is part of that collective responsibility of the government itself. So that they can't do, because they are all from different political parties, and essentially that divide is there. The very, very powerful divide is there. But will they be failing in? You see, I was watching this morning. 3 Democrats, congressmen who are Democrats. Ortiz is one of them. What's this lady called?
Cortez.
Cortez. And Mancini. I don't know how they... Mancini, yeah. There's no an I at the end of it, so that's why I'm a bit confused, but it's actually pronounced as Mancini or Mankin. Anyway, Mancini, yes, is the way it's pronounced.
Yes.
And another one, and others from the Democratic side of the divide, who are opposed to this new deal Biden is trying to put in of $3.2 trillion US dollars.
Yeah.
And you know, they have reason to
oppose it.
To oppose their own president. You see what I mean? Now, if that flops, it tells you something. For them, the good thing is that the 4 years is their cast in stone. But they're midterm elections.
Mm-hmm.
So the midterm election, if it flops, which means the president cannot move. The executive can't move.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get my point?
Yes.
And then the midterm elections is also going to indicate if the people are unhappy with it. And so the bulk of the people who support him are going to lose.
Yeah.
That's why some of these Republicans, Democrats right now are already breaking ranks with their own leader and saying, sorry, we can't be together. You see what I mean?
Because we have an election coming up.
Yes, midterm elections coming out. Staggered.
Yep.
But what do we have ourselves? We have a presidential election, parliamentary election, Senate election, everything happening on the same time, on the same period, all the way to MCS.
Yes.
One day.
6.
Yeah. If we had it staggered, and let's assume, for argument's sake, the president is doing his second year. But some people are going to go for elections that year, and the president is not doing right. Even if they're from his own party, they say, no, we have a problem with him. You know what I mean? Make life impossible for him.
Excuse me, teacher. I disagree. In the current system that we have,
yes,
one of the problems that you have highlighted so well, I believe, is the fact that each of these individuals owes their position to the person who is sitting in State House.
Yes.
That their allegiance is to the president.
Yes.
And they know that the president will support their campaign. They know that they got elected just because of the party.
Yes.
Somebody went and ticked red.
Yes.
So even if we had a midterm election, people would still be aligning themselves with the person who's in State House because
they put them there
the
in the first
person
place.
has the purse strings
I'll explain to you.
and can support them in their campaign. And then can then get them elected.
Yes.
In fact, that's even worse. The reason why we're having all these problems we're having today, and just like you've said, members of parliament, an independent parliament, with its own parliamentary service commission, with its own calendar, with its own budget, with its own powers to even stifle the executive of budget, and they are still powerless, is because they do not know their own powers. They believe that the person in State House is the one that they owe their allegiance to. There's nothing that stops a chair of the budget committee, for example, from saying the budget policy statement that has been brought from the National Treasury is faulty.
We are not going to pass it.
And we are refusing to pass it.
Yes.
There's nothing that stops them. In fact, in their reports, they always raise issues with that in the report that they are taking, but they say, let's pass it. Why? It's because they are spineless. It's not because of our system and structure.
Can I just explain? Let's assume, for argument's sake, this is an election year.
Yes.
But the president has 3 more years to go. But your election as a member of parliament for Embakasi is coming now.
Yes.
You would be inclined to talk about the problems of the people of Embakasi and blame the same president who is from your own party and say that I have said this, I've raised this, Mr. President, my people need this, my people need that, because you want to come back yourself.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? But because these things all fall on the same day, that the president is seeking votes on the same day you're seeking votes, and everybody, women rep, senator, everybody, the tendency is that you say, let's either hang together or we will die separate. But if the things are separate, then you will allow your friend to be sacrificed separately.
Because you're still in that position. And
You're
it
still
really
in that
doesn't matter.
position, yes.
But like now...
But let me just finish. Now, Mpakasi has got... Yes, you know that come the next election for the president after 3 years, there will be...
There's a change of guard.
There will be so-and-so, will be so-and-so. There are many people who will be also seeking that presidency, who have already indicated their interest to dethrone the presidency. But your constituency is composed of all those different sectors of people who have supported different people. You get my point? For you to support a president who is sitting that time and not delivering on
the promises,
and the needs of your own people will be a suicide. You will never do that.
Yep.
You get my point?
Yes.
You will never do that. So if somebody comes up and says, let's move a motion of censure on the president or a motion of no confidence in the president, you say, fine, he is not able to support us. Look at my constituency. Because you care more than anything else. Coming back yourself. Are you getting my point? You will not commit suicide.
Even right now, the current members of parliament know they don't have a term limit. They are thinking about 2022 and coming back. And they know the incumbent president is on his way out in a constitutional term limit. So basically, that's why the word lame duck has been used. Today, what bars any Jubilee MP who's thinking about the future from standing up and saying,
And
no,
saying that we're not
I
going
am
to
voting,
accept this.
I am voting against the Jubilee line, or I'm voting against the State House line. All those in Mount Kenya who've been aligning themselves with the UDA, why can't they vote differently in the House?
Because good question.
Because politically, in terms of expediency, they have nothing to lose in terms of
Good
who's
question.
been aligning themselves with all this time.
Good question.
So why not come out and say it? If that is the reasoning,
Yes.
that all this time, the decisions that I've made, the direction that I've taken, the position that I've held fast to, is because of who is pulling the strings.
Absolutely.
Now, that person who's pulling these strings, essentially in the next term, will not be there.
He has
So
no influence.
why? So he has no influence. So what
yes.
stops you then from making a decision at that point that is going to reject some of the things that they're crying about today?
This contributes to that statement, I believe, about the absence of depth. Because depth, if I understand Mheshimiwa correctly, has to do with idealism. Meaning, and principle. This is why I'm here, and this is what I'm...
Political beliefs.
Yes, exactly. And I'm going to live by them, and I'm going to push the agenda. And you understand the ramifications.
Yeah.
But when expediency comes in, you wouldn't be wrong if you said, because of the reign of expediency, there is no depth. Because you actually don't have a position.
Absolutely.
You're a wind vane.
You're actually there for you.
They lack
Yes.
principle.
Principle.
There's a shortage of principle, like you've said.
They're
It's
there for you. It's not about
shallow in
it's not
terms of
about
principle.
governance.
This is where now the media can take the charge. You pick the ball and run with it.
What if we also lack depth?
Because that is the point. I agree with you fully.
Why are you giving?
No, I've asked the question. No, I've asked the question. I've asked the
I
question.
agree with you. Now, you got it now. You got it now.
I've asked the question. I haven't made a statement.
You got it
Yes.
now. You got it now. Listen, if you have more of this kind of debates on the television, on the radios, in the print media, this country is going to be a lot better than it is today. I was hosting a program in Ebru TV, which was called Speaker's Gallery.
Yeah.
The only reason why we suspended it at some stages, I got COVID myself, and I did not want to expose others, and I was asymptomatic, which basically means I was not sick. And almost everybody in my family got it, and thank God they're all out of it now. And that's how we stopped that. So we're likely to start that program at some stage, because I realized that there was no depth. There was no, there is need for us to raise the bar a bit higher than that within the media fraternity. The radio, the TV, and the print media. And it's easy. You don't have to reinvent the wheel again. You can even, as a former legislator myself, I'm willing to participate in some of those things. You see, whenever the legislation calendar in this country is long. Sometimes you know the kind of bills that are going to come 6 months down the line, 4 months down the line, 3 months down the line. That is the time to engage in those bills and create awareness. And by the way, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, like I said. Those same legislations or similar legislations to those ones have had their own powerful debates in other developed jurisdictions, democratic jurisdictions. The conditions are different from ours. Because the conditions are different, certain inputs into that and those pieces of legislation will definitely be different. But by and large, there are areas that there's a lot of commonality. So to do those researches, like my brother here, who is gifted and exceptional in his own right, can take time, and I'm willing to sit with you and give it to you from the legislative perspective, and so that we can dissect some of these things and then create a narrative, create a debate way before. You'll be surprised that you'll be educating even the members of parliament because
themselves.
I'll explain to you.
After the
break. One time, what happened?
After the break.
Okay, get the break.
That's a very good one coming up.
Sorry.
Right here.
Sorry.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. You're having a conversation with former MP for Dera then, and former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. And he wants to be the next MP for Dadaab. Good morning. 27 minutes to 10.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Cloudy, Nairobi at 17, highs of 25 and lows of 13 today. Nyeri, cloudy at 17, we'll see highs of 23. 26 will be the high in Nakuru, where it's partly sunny at 18. And sunny conditions as well in Eldoret. We'll go to highs of 24 and lows of 13. Kisumu, sunny at 25, highs of 30. And in Kakamega, sunny at 25, we'll see highs of 29. Mombasa, light rain in some parts at 27. Cloudy conditions in others, highs of 29 and lows of 24. And Malindi also will be wet through the morning at 27. It'll go to highs of 29, lows of 25. Out in Kampala, it's mostly sunny at 22. We'll see highs of 28. And Kinshasa, now raining at 27. I beg your pardon. Dar es Salaam, now raining at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Joburg is sunny at 15. We'll see lows of 8 and highs of 25. And Lagos continues to rain at 25, going to highs of 29. Kinshasa is sunny at 25, highs of 34 and lows of 23. Into Beijing, it's sunny at 25. 27 will be the high, lows of 13. And London this morning, cloudy conditions at 14, highs of 21 and lows of 12. Paris is sunny at 10, highs of 19 and lows of 9. And round things off in New York, coming into Tuesday early, highs of 23, clear conditions and lows of 20.
Spice up your life.
All right, ebbing out on parts of industrial area. Mombasa Road seems to be flowing smoothly inbound. It will continue that way for some time. Just a little hiccup here and there where the construction continues. Also seeing it looking a little bit better on Langata Road, but then as you get to that Timor roundabout, spilling over towards Aerodrome, coming in from Lusaka and Bunyala onto Huru Highways, where you see most of the traffic getting into the city this morning. Looking much better on the Thika Superhighway. That traffic has cleared. Just that little spot at getting into the city right around the Globe Cinema overpass. So I think we're keeping things down to a dull roar. Let's see what it looks like through most parts of today. Get stuck. Tell us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. Alright, SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Final 20 minutes of the hour. We're going to open up the phone line 0719-012-600 so that you can speak to Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim, former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Is Parliament answerable and responsible to Kenyans? Right? So before we took the break, you were about to give us an example.
Yes. Very,
a nice story.
A very interesting one. Very interesting one. Look, we were doing this bill on the floor of the House of requiring MPs and MCS to have degrees. And a few of us were seriously in for that idea. And you know how technical legislative process is. Delete, insert, and the rest of it. And finally, when we put the question, as many of those people say, aye, and no, there's no. And when it came out, somebody asking me, what was the import of that piece of legislation we've just passed? I asked him, do you have a degree? He said, no, I don't have a degree. He said, that eliminates you. In the next election. And we observed, because I was looking at the numbers. Amin Abdullah was also there, a very big proponent of the same, just like me. And we observed that more than half of the ones who were there were people who didn't have degrees. But they just did not understand the language. People come to Parliament, they sit in there, it's a voting machine, aye, no, and they go.
They just look.
Yes. So
they ask their neighbor.
Yes. So then what happened? What happened is that after that, big uproar, massive uproar, they all ganged up together and we went and waited for Kibaki to come from outside. Kibaki refused to assent to the bill. You know what I mean? Because he was there was one particular very, very effective and a very good member of Parliament who had not gone to school, but literally serious agent of change, both for her community and the rest. And I think because of that, Mama Lucy and others also intervened on behalf, and that's why the piece of legislation was never assented to much later, I think. And
do you think we lost as a country as a result of that?
No, but it's there. It's now there. It's already been. It's part of the
issue
now.
Is whether next year it's going to be implemented.
No,
in the next election.
There's a reason why I asked
whether we lost with the passing of the bill.
No, with the not passing of the bill.
No, we don't assent.
Not coming into effect.
Yes,
operationalization.
yes.
We made a big mistake. We should have done it. Things would have been much more different. The only other thing that needs to be done is to make sure that government's the higher education department must, Commission for Higher Education, must make sure that they do a serious job. Because this business of people coming up with degrees, fake degrees, but because they're very powerful and they have a lot of money and they get away with it.
But from where you're sitting, it is absolutely essential that a member of Parliament,
Must
essentially the legislature, should have a degree. Why?
Beyond reproach.
Why?
Because, like I just told you, it's a lawmaking body.
Right.
It is true, but what does a degree
make a
do?
Law without an fundamental understanding of certain subject matter.
Absolutely. You see, when you go to university, regardless of what faculty you're in or what discipline you're studying, there are certain general courses that are there. And they're always there. And Parliament is one of those general courses, whether you're doing a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science or whatever you're doing.
Sure.
And I love the American system because there are always those general courses that are done that puts you into a situation in which, because they know that you can come out as an agriculturist, you'll not always be dealing with crops and pathogens and livestock and the rest of it. That is a political process there. So the historical political disposition is a must, and a university gives you that. So I think it's important that that piece of legislation comes into force. And then there is a serious scrutiny in the manner in which it has to be implemented. Right now, it makes no difference because you can get your degree from whatever you want. I was talking about somebody the other day who we wondered whether he has a degree, and somebody told me he has a PhD.
Just in case you doubted.
Just in case you doubted. The man not only has a first degree,
he has a second.
He has a second, and he has a doctorate. so these things are for sale. You know what I mean? They're just.
But Mheshimiwa, as I listen to you, and just a few minutes ago, you were giving us the example of the work that you did in 1993. You moved a motion championing affirmative action on education.
Yes.
And the argument that you used then was looking at your own constituency where you came from.
Yes.
And
No, all the pastoral.
Yeah,
It included Pokot, included Samburu,
of course,
Masai, all those.
For you started the idea.
More than anything else, Northeastern,
idea was brought into
because
your mind
of Northeastern
because
issue.
of where you were looking at.
Yes.
And you're looking at your own Lagdera constituency at that point.
Yeah.
Did it have enough people who could have passed lead master? Today, Dadaab constituency, how many people would challenge for the seat of Member of Parliament if this
piece of legislation
is actually implemented in the next election?
The number of graduates that I know of myself, the ones who have had an influence one way or the other, is over 5,000 students. The ones I've had a personal influence in.
In the Dadaab constituency?
No, it's over, all over.
I'm talking about...
They're even losing.
Let's just talk about the Dadaab constituency, where you want to be the next MP.
Well,
do you think the people of the Dadaab would have a wide array of people from whom to choose, who are willing to vie? You know, not everybody who has a degree wants to be an MP.
Right now, I think the bottom line is there. The bottom line qualification everybody's looking at is one must have a degree. And so far, all the aspirants I know that are going to be there in the ballot with me have degrees. But the point I'm trying to tell you is that what I told Gitu Muigai, and that's how Gitu bought it. He was Attorney General, although he was chased by Kibaki. Kibaki told him, you think Kenya is Kiambu.
Yeah.
In other words, everybody has a degree. So, Gitu, and we said, Gitu, look, if nothing else, everybody's going to go back to school. When you create this kind of a requirement, many people are going to go back to school.
And get the kind of degrees you're complaining about now.
Absolutely. And by the way, the mere fact that piece of legislation was passed, and everybody knew that the operationalization is going to be any time, there are many people who went back to school at old age to study, everybody. And so that basically has created a very powerful paradigm shift in the manner in which our society it's a national value now to go to school.
But Mheshimiwa, I have an issue though.
Yes.
Because the question, we've had this debate in this very same studio. Somebody who is a diploma holder, given the number of years that somebody actually studies for their diploma, what is this thing that a diploma holder will lack that a degree holder will have in real terms when it comes to, I'm just talking about the specific discipline that they've studied for. What is this thing that they will have that the other person doesn't have? I'm saying this because it's a debatable subject.
Let me tell you one thing, and I remember that myself, and I remember it a lot. During our time, me and you, the quality of education was so phenomenal.
It was beyond reproach.
It was so good that a Form 4, the kind of application or a letter or a composition a Form 4 can put together those days, a graduate in these days, very few of them can put that together. And I'll tell you, I've seen it with my own eyes. You know what I mean? Where I had to take a young man who's a graduate somewhere and tell him, okay, put in your application because I got him a job. And look at the application, I was shocked. And I had to literally draft it for him and for him. You get my point? And that cuts across. And so basically, The diploma teachers who used to teach us those days, I didn't see one teach me, but then different schools, there were many.
And there were very many. In fact,
they were the best.
One could argue they were the vast majority.
Those ones who came from Kenyatta University, which was the only two institutions that were given diplomas for secondary school teachers. They were called S1s, or they were called what? Approved? No, S1s.
They were S1s, and then
they were called S1s.
Then there was Kenya Science.
Yes, Kenya Science. Those are the two institutions. Yes. Kenya Science and Kenyatta.
And then later on, KTTC.
Yes. KTTC came to offer the same.
Yes, but
the same.
For the technical subjects.
For technical subjects, and those were the only three at that time. Kenyatta University was called Kenyatta College. And I was in a national school. I remember there was a teacher who was graduating and was doing his teaching practice with us. I was one of the best teachers I can ever remember. I remember now. Later on, of course, I saw him. He got his bachelor's, master's, and got his PhD. Was a very senior executive somewhere. But the point I'm trying to tell you is that those were those days.
So
those were the days. You don't have them anymore again.
The push then should be on the quality.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Not on the paper. But let's go to the phone lines. I've got two callers on the line. Let's just hear from them.
Absolutely.
Amani, good morning.
Good morning. How are you all?
We are all fine.
Okay, great. Malim, I want to challenge what you just said about certain things about the previous glorious parliament. I think it's an exaggeration. Not in a bad way, because when you look at what's happening now, anything in the past is better. But when you look at it critically, at heart, you'll find people like the Toto man, who terrorized everybody in the country. You had Timama, who told people to lie low as an envelope. Hello?
Yes. Amani, go on. But you've put us on your speakerphone, Amani. Why?
No, I beg your pardon.
Okay.
All right. But you had those kinds of instances that happened often. It was like the norm. So I'm not so sure how glorious that parliament was. And then coming to the issue of having ministers, cabinet secretaries in parliament, I think that's really a void argument, simply because the committees have the powers under the Constitution, Article 125(1), to summon any person at any time to give evidence or to provide information.
Yep.
And this is what happens in the American system as well. One doesn't have to be physically present to be accountable. That is old thinking. That's analog thinking, and it didn't help us in the past because they were so arrogant anyway, those ministers. They chose to answer or not to answer, depending on what the political boss wanted done. So I don't think that is really a good representation of why we need to go back to that system.
Okay,
America
Amani.
works very well the way it does.
Thank you, Amani.
Okay.
Today you have an issue with your line, but let's hear from Karanja before you respond to that. Karanja, good morning.
Good morning, Eric Kidur and City.
Morning, Karanja.
Yes, I'm very fine. And the former deputy speaker.
Yes.
In 80 parliament, 80 parliament are the 10th parliament.
The 10th parliament was when I was in the
Yes, the 10th parliament.
Yes.
You are Ada Maranda. Maranda was the speaker of the National Assembly by then.
It's
Marende.
Marende.
Yes.
Marende. Yes, Marende.
Maranda was the other guy who was Chief Justice. Yes.
Okay, yes, Marende. Now, what occasions these hefty allowances, sitting allowance, traveling allowance, others have gone abroad to see how mandazis have been cooked. So, my question is, what occasions these hefty allowances, given the fact that I know there is an MP in Meru who is called Gawu, who is a day scorer. What happened to the rest of the MP? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there justification for sitting allowances? So let's start with what Amani raised.
Look, she said in that parliament there was, she didn't see any glory in that because there were Intimama who said lie low like an envelope. And there was...
Total man.
Total man. Nicholas Biwott. Well, look, they probably had held their own political convictions on the basis of the political contestation that was there and the divide. We have seen much more than that in later years. We haven't seen the level of death and destruction that we saw in 2007, 2008. This one far outweighed the problems we had before. But the reality of the matter is that these are two persons who are both deceased now. And I interacted with them when I was an opposition member of parliament, opposed to the policies of the government of the day. But I can tell you one thing. They were both very articulate and dignified in the areas where you had a commonality in. Of course, if you did not want Moi to continue as the president, and you had somebody else in mind, you would never be common in that.
No.
It would never be common in that. And you know, but of course, when it came to other areas, they were there. Ntimama there was an effort to try and brand him as an anti-Kikuyu guy. He had his issues with Kikuyus who were running for the presidency and who at the time probably felt that that was their birthright, that they were the only ones who fought for independence in this country, and a number of issues that were there. And if he held a different opinion, that does not vilify him and make him any worse than the Kikuyu who thinks that the country belongs to them and everybody else is a guest. Number one. Number two, and Biwott was also there. You remember they called him the passing cloud. And we didn't call him passing cloud. It's not a Kisi or a Somali who called him a passing cloud. It's a mountain region who called him a passing cloud. So those kind of positions. And if he said lie low like an envelope, the idea was that don't oppose the mainstream Maasai position when it comes to where they want to go in these elections. If you are from the mountain region and you have settled with us, our in-laws and our visitors and our brothers and sisters, don't be too vocal.
Listen.
Things.
Accept our things. And that's exactly what the ones in mountain will do. And they did even then. There is no way you could live in the mountain as a Somali or a Kisi or a Luo and come out opposing Matiba those days, or even opposing Uhuru now. You know what I mean? Even if you're going to go and vote, just lie low like an envelope and go and vote without making a big, big talk about it. And that time you have to understand our
context.
Our democracy was still in its own infant stage.
Infancy, yes.
It's not like today. Today you can go anywhere and say whatever you want. You see what I mean?
One would think.
Yeah, one would think. Although there's a massive intolerance, I do understand that.
Yes.
You go to Luo Nyanza today and say anything awful about Raila. And you better have some sports shoes on you because you better be a very fast runner.
You better make it out.
The second issue that...
just to finish that one, I want to say that those were both very good friends, very good people. And they had friends across the board. For example, I remember Kreitu was a good friend of mine. Kreitu and Biwott were very good friends in Parliament. They would always sit together and talk. Even that talk itself, there's definitely a sense of disagreement. Muthui was another one, Paul Muthui, and Biwott would be friends and talk about issues. So I would talk about issues myself and disagree with him on lots of things and agree on others.
Yeah.
And Timama was one of the most pleasant guys you've ever seen. So basically he was trying to play the politics of the day, the correctness of the day, to show that Baba wa Taifa Nyayo.
He was being alive to his time.
He was being alive to his time,
right.
Absolutely, yes.
Because we're running out
and
of
everybody,
time.
most people were then.
The second issue that Amani raised,
Yeah,
this is, she disagrees that, having
ministers
cabinet,
coming from inside, yeah. The point is, I'll tell you, she says, the chair of those committees can summon anybody.
Yeah.
But the chairs of those committees are the same ones who are supposed to defend the government's position and policies on the floor.
But is that what the standing orders of the
of course, they are the ones who are there. You see, that's what happens.
Is their job to defend?
Yes. They are there. You see, when the three fundamental roles of a legislator is representation, oversight
and legislation.
And legislation. So when you represent your people and you come out there and you say this and this has been done to my people, who is the person who is going to answer you? The chair of the relevant committee. The minister is not there. You see what I mean? The minister is not there to come and explain to. Right now there are problems in Laikipia. The minister can only do it from his office in Harambee House, or he can only call for a press conference. But he is not in a situation in which he can be held accountable, asked questions, put on the defense. You see what I mean? And
what was he doing when he appeared before the Administration and Security Committee?
Look, Administration and Security Committee is a committee of the government of the day. They have, which has the majority. Which has the majority on the floor of the House. Let me tell you one thing. It might have a few members from other areas, but look at the way
it's controlled by the government.
It's controlled by the government, and it's the report that at the end of the day makes the difference. You can say whatever you want in there. You can ask them questions, and if you watch very closely, you have a chair who is always defending the government, and literally telling the other ones who are against it, shut up. You know what I mean?
That is true.
Yes. So that system has not worked for us.
Okay. I think we'll have the issue on allowances as a separate issue because we only have 30 seconds.
Yes.
30 seconds to go. Are they justified or are they not? Sitting allowances by members of parliament in 30 seconds.
Look, I one time said, when I was the deputy speaker, I gave a statement and I said, the money paid to parliament or parliamentarians is way over. And I suggested something like a third of that at that time. And I literally took in the example of, this is a calling. This is not a place where you are a technocrat and you expect your professional value to be either enhanced or to be met.
Okay. Make this a tease for the next conversation because we'll invite you again so we can get deeper into this. Yes or no for sitting allowances?
I caught a lot of
yes or no
from the members of parliament. But let me explain to you.
As far as yes or no, we only have 10 seconds now.
Let me explain to you. Let me explain to you. When you work and you're working today, you have a salary. The presumption is that you're working for 30 days a month.
Yes.
Except, of course, the weekends and others, and you have a leave.
Yes.
Do you get paid allowance for sitting here now?
No.
Why then do you pay it to parliament?
So Farah's answer is no.
Yes.
Very good.
Okay.
Come back again soon, Farah Maalim. Asante sana for joining us. City, we remember today's proverb. We'll remind people again tomorrow. It's 10 a.m. Have a lovely day, folks. It's been a short time. Good morning.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world.